We're locked in, man. We're locked in.
All right.
Thanks for coming in, man. Nice to meet you. From like we were saying just earlier, from everything that I've already heard about you from Jay, our mutual friend. Essentially, you're a wild person living a wild life in in all the right ways. And then from just following everything that you're doing online, it looks like you're living it in quite a lot of cool areas that I'm interested in, from the physicality to the martial arts to the training to everything on top of that, from the emotional, the spiritual, all the stuff that you need to be able to live that kind of life. So yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm pumped. Pumped.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And I like the fact that you said when I first met you just now that you're obsessed with life.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
Obsessed with life. I think the reason why that obsession started is because I feel like I've got a level of agency. You know, we were talking about kids before. You know, kids are a good way to start. Kids love games for a good reason. All of a sudden, a game makes sense. You've got constraints, you've got rules, you've got directive, and they like to play, like to figure out, like, okay, how can I test the rules a little bit? As if the rules are not clear, how can I see if I can break those boundaries? And then as soon as they, I don't know, got a point, they're like, okay, I've moved forward. That makes me feel good. The thing with adult life, I think everything is a game. You know, whether that's being a good friend, whether that's being an entrepreneur or working or having a partner, they're all games. But often we haven't spent enough time thinking about the constraints of life. We haven't thought about rules that are implied. Where do I actually want to go? What's my intention? And I have an experience a while back, about 5 years ago, which we'll talk about later, where I realized life is exactly that. It's a game. You've got a directive. You've got rules. You've got moments where you might score a point. You might get an extra level. You might get a new quest or new equipment. You get my vibe, right?
Of course.
And then I realized, like, I can actually work this. I can actually take direct actions, put in effort, and get results out. And then I went like, why would I not be obsessed with this? Because I've got a path to follow. I mean, depression, for example, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't get depression. Like, the thing I have experienced in my life is anxiousness, because I'm always very switched on and like to lean into things. But depression, I don't get, because I'm like, you're playing a game. Why would you be depressed about playing a game? It's awesome. You can build a character. You can,
for sure. I mean, when you put it like that, it makes perfect sense to me. I can definitely see how people cannot see it as a game. You know, it gets very serious.
Yeah, very,
very serious, and not something that you can progress through, and not even something that you can play with and have a good time. It's more like you're stuck in this cycle, and there is no agency and there is no freedom.
Yeah,
I guess it gets to people.
Well, the first thing someone's probably going to say to me when I say life is a game, they go like, "Oh yeah, but you don't respond." I'm like, "Well,
you don't respond."
Well, in a game, you might have several lives, like
respawn. Okay,
yeah. Sorry, yeah. I'm Dutch.
All good, man.
It's the accent.
All good.
No, like you don't respawn.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, don't you? I personally, through an experience, I've come to believe that I've had past lives, and that after death I move on. And if you see it that way, then you realize like death is not the end. So why wouldn't you? I mean, you're gonna lose everything at some point. Why wouldn't you put everything in? You know, at face value, if you don't even believe that life is a game, if you think about you're gonna die one day, you're gonna lose your body, you're gonna lose all your money, you're gonna lose your friends, your mom and dad, and that sounds really sad, but you've got it right now. Do something with it. Take steps. Make the most of it. And if you believe you come back and you're gonna do all this stuff again in a different situation, then you really start to see the game aspect of it.
How deeply do you have to believe that notion to be able to put things on the line and start truly living, you know?
Fully. Something we'll get into later as well. I've come to believe that beliefs make up reality. So as we sit here, this is a bench. I'm talking to you as a person, you're a man, and I have beliefs about you being a man.
Yeah.
That affects you. society believing what's right and wrong affects us as well. So for me to truly take on life as a game, I need to believe it fully. It can't be like 99% or having little doubts. Like that needs to be as fundamental as possible. You can't go, you know what, I'm just going to go for 1 month, I'm going to gamify life. Like, no, if you do it completely. Because the mind always tries to get a bit of doubt in there. And once doubt starts to creep in, as I said before with the kids, if I try and be a leader and I doubt myself, people know and they won't listen.
Because belief is 100%, right? As soon as it's 99% or anything less than that, it's sort of hopes and wishes. It's not really a belief at that point. I feel like I've thought that I believed something, and then it's like, yeah, I believe this, but X, Y, Z. It's like, well, do I really believe it? Like, how much stock am I going to put in that belief when it's really important, when it matters?
Well, this is a bit of semantics, but I think it's really necessary to talk about. So when someone hears belief, they go like, I need to believe in this. They think of the religion, right?
Like a faith.
Yeah, like it might be like, oh, I believe in God, or I believe in Buddha, or I believe in whatever. But I think it's the other way around. It is because you take that on, it becomes it. People say like, oh, I need to see it to believe it. I'm like, I think you need to change that around. You believe it, and then you start to see it. I like that one. Yeah, that works.
That works?
Yeah.
Yeah, like do you prescribe to, maybe it's none of these ideas or there's potentially some more nuance to it, but the idea that we live in a physical, material reality and we exist in the middle of it, or we exist in some form, we are in the middle of it, creating this reality, at kind of loading it game style. It's loading in front of us. As we have more beliefs around the world, it begins to sort of manifest around us as opposed to the conventional manner.
Well, I think Skyrim is a good way to describe how I view reality at the moment. For anyone who hasn't played Skyrim, the thing about Skyrim is it's a single player game. There's no other players involved except for NPCs, non-player characters. And if you look into the distance and you see like a mountain, you'll see, the bear shape of it.
Yeah.
And as you start to get closer, it becomes more three-dimensional. You start to see more details. I think lives fundamentally works the same way. And I don't just say this. I say this based off of what I've learned about quantum mechanics and systems theory. If you look at entanglement, for example, if you look at light from going from a wave to a particle, it's the same thing. If you're far enough away and you don't really observe it, it's a wave, but then you see it, all of a sudden it becomes a particle. So Skyrim is a good way to understand what I'm trying to get at here.
I fully agree. And I think if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, jump on YouTube and look it up. I've seen some zoomed out versions of Skyrim. So you're not just looking at the character view, you're looking at how much landscape is around the character. And then you're looking at how the trees, they don't exist. For an example, let's say 200 meters away, there are no trees. On the game view, there's just nothing. It's just empty space. And then as soon as you walk over that hill, they start literally
popping up.
It's not. They were never there until you walked there.
Yeah.
They were never there until you thought about it.
Yeah, but there's another layer, and this is, we're gonna go a little bit deeper already.
Let's go.
Elaborate. You're ready, aren't you?
I'm ready. I'm here.
This is once again a belief, something I've noticed over time. I believe you can increase your ability to render your environment, and it has everything to do with cycles. Walk through any supermarket, look at any random person, and you can sort of see whether they're really there or not. You might have someone that isn't eating healthy, isn't exercising, has tremendous amount of stress. You sort of see the bare bone version of them. If you talk to them, they'll give you those NPC answers. And then you might someone that is in that same situation but feels a little bit better, has eaten a little bit better, has had a bit more sleep. All of a sudden, they look you in the eyes. And if you answer them, give them a question, they might give you a more elaborate answer. But every so often, you find that one individual where you're like, whoa, you're really here. You're really looking at me. The person, if you ask them a question, they pause, they look at you, they consider how they feel, and they go, you know what? I think right now this will be the right answer versus my standard answer. And this is not just that person. This can be trained. You can actually get closer to this through barefoot walking, filtering your water, making sure your body's not locked up, belief systems, what you're eating. But yeah, that's a pretty wild belief that I have. Well,
I believe the same thing. Do you believe it is the case for like this? This is the case for each person, and what I mean by that is, in the example that you used, if you're talking to the person on the train who there's sort of it feels like there's nothing behind their eyes. There's nothing going on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And do you think that same person they also have the capacity to be there, to be fully present?
Now, if we go back to the game and look what life is as a game, you can level up your character. You know, RuneScape is something I used to play back in the day. MMORPG, multiplayer game. And if you're level 10, your options are very limited. You know, you might have bronze armor, or you have a hard time with fighting goblins, but at some point you become like level 100, you can go wherever you want. I think life is the same way. And what helps here is to understand that I'm not necessarily better or worse than anyone. I'm just on a different path. I might be here and someone might be far more advanced than I am, or someone might have just climbed 10 set of stairs and already done 100. I believe that essentially what you want to do is to go from sentience, which is the lowest level of computations of a system, which is, you know, most animals, people that are under high stress, kids, going to consciousness. Consciousness is more of the mind, to understand how your mind works. You can talk to someone, you can relate to the person. And then beyond consciousness, you go to self-awareness or awareness, where you see your body and mind as a thing of its own, and you realize that you are everything. And I think that's a path that every human being is going to take at some point. Because being more aware leads you away from suffering. It leads you away from, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, or that person said this to me, and it makes me feel this way, where you go, yeah, but this is just my mind. I don't have to be upset about this. Because they probably had a bad day, and you've had too much coffee, or you haven't slept well, so that's why you respond. I think anyone is following this path to a degree.
Whether they know it or not.
Yes, and that's the fun part.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know it, life is really hard.
You don't realize that you can get better. You don't realize that there is a way to begin raising your frequency, or however you want to look at it.
That's a good topic. Frequency.
Is this the way that you look at it in terms of frequency and levels of consciousness from the rock to the plant to the animal to the human to the enlightened one?
Well, frequency, to truly understand frequency, you need to have a basic understanding of quantum mechanics. So we talked before about Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics was all about, you know, particles, empty space, and time.
Yeah.
And slowly with quantum mechanics, we realized that there is no space and there is no time. It's all fields, essentially. And those fields, the way we interact with them, cause us to see space and time. And a field, which we usually call an electromagnetic field, can alter you in a certain way. So everything in life can be seen as a field of sorts, where it's gravity, where there's magnetism, electric, amplitude of a frequency. It's all pretty much the same. Does that make sense?
Definitely makes sense. 100%. And they're all operating in a similar... Once again, I'm going to preface these parts of this conversation with, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a deeply developed understanding of quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
However, I'm still down to get stuck into it. Have you read... I think I got the book down here. Where is it?
Ah, you're a reader. I like that.
Have you read this book? The Kabbalion? Or have you heard of this referenced?
I have heard of it. Yes, I have heard of it.
It's a great book. It's a great book, and it's got some interesting parts in it, whether you think it's true or whether you think it's not true. But essentially, one of the main premises in this book is that everything is frequency. Every single thing is frequency. And the things that seem opposite to one another, in, out, black, white, up, down, all of these things that we, in our binary normal state of consciousness, we feel like they're opposing contradictory forces. Yet in this book, it sort of tries to take you away from that thinking and go, hey, nothing is an opposite. It's just different degrees of intensity on the same spectrum.
That's also a really important part of quantum mechanics. Yeah. Yeah, the on and off versus degrees. That's a really good point, because go to any major religion and they talk about good and bad. They talk about Satan, Lucifer, and they talk about God. I don't think that's how life operates. I think the good and bad, the binary, is a very low level of consciousness. There was there's a little poem about a farmer. I'm probably going to botch it up, but I'll try and get the message across.
Cool.
And it was a farmer working with his son on the field, and his son got hurt. And the whole village said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for you." It's like, well, let's see. And then the next day, the country's at war, and the army came over and went, "We need your son because we're going to war." It's like, "Oh, my son's leg is broken. Okay, we'll leave him." And then they said, "Oh, that's so fortunate." But then the next day, something else happened that was negative again. And then the village goes again, "Oh, that's so unfortunate." He said, "Let's see." Meaning, there's no real good and bad at all.
Mm.
And I think that's where you move away from depression, because depression is, defeatedness. You think, I'm in this situation, I can't get away from it. But then you get that bird's eye view and you start to see all the forces at play, and you start to see the relations. You go, oh, okay. Actually, that wasn't bad at all, or that good thing wasn't as positive. And then you start to get that game aspect again.
And this is the hard part, right? When I think about all of these things, because it's all very apparent in hindsight often,
Yeah.
if you are looking, I like to think about the ideas of sort of how the different dots connect your life. Those dots that didn't seem to make any sense when you were in that particular part of your existence, and you look back on it now and it potentially was an integral part to who you are. Now it makes sense in the story. And it makes sense to me to look back and be like, oh, it all had meaning. It all had purpose if I choose it to be so. But it's more difficult to have that same aspect to the future, if I haven't seen it yet.
But do you know why?
Tell me.
Oh, I'm not going to say that's the answer, but my perception is, I think that's emotion.
Mm.
So emotions are obviously very useful, because emotions allow you to respond to things very quickly. Like if I look you in the eye, I can see how you're feeling in that moment because I feel a certain way. We mirror each other. That's what we as human beings do. We've got mirror neurons. But if I can pull away my emotions and just think and sense, all of a sudden in the moment, I can start to see the relations a lot better. I mean, look at any 15-year-old. I'm saying 15-year-old because I've got one at home.
Yeah.
That's been on his device all day, doing something highly stimulating, needing sugar, so they go to the kitchen to get something. That's all emotion. There's no rationality there. And you go as an adult, you go like, oh yeah, but you've been on your screen all day. Maybe you should go for a walk, or maybe you should do some exercise. And because they're so emotional, they can't think rationally. And it's only when they've calmed down, it's only when they've eaten some good food or had a bit of a walk, they go, you actually had a good point. And here comes the gamifying aspect again. Once you get control of your emotions, you start to understand why you respond emotionally a certain way or not. You can pull yourself away from that. Like I know I'm a very intense individual. Like I do martial arts and I do lots of weightlifting. So I know how I respond to new situations, which means that it doesn't affect me as much anymore. And if I look someone in the eye and I have a really intense look and they get that, and I go, ooh, I've done something wrong. I'm like, no, that's just who I am.
Just an intense dude.
I'm just an... yeah.
You're showing up full of life, jacked, staring at someone. It's like, holy shit, man. Fuck. I'm not ready for this much life yet.
Yeah, but once you soften, you allow someone else to soften as well. Because, I run a dojo in Eltham with my partner, and we do lots of martial arts. And we recently had an awards night. And during the awards night, we handed out awards to kids that did really well during the year. And there was one child in particular that I highlighted with the parents afterwards. I said to them, do you know why I gave your daughter this award? Because she's always herself. She's a bit quirky. As in, she has those little awkward moments, which I really like about her. Mm. Because her being the way she is allows everyone else to be the way they are. I'm like, nobody is perfect. We are, but our sense of perfect is not correct.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
We're all crazy.
Yeah.
We are all crazy, like with our phones and the things we get upset with and being worried about death. But what's going to happen when you die? Well, either you believe that you're going to come back, which means don't worry, or you're going to lose everything. So don't worry.
No need to worry anyway.
No need to worry anyway. So what I liked about her, she was just herself. She was just who she was. And because she was that way, everyone else went like, you know what? I'm a bit awkward too. I'm a bit anxious too. I'm a bit embarrassed too. And I'm just going to put it out there so everyone knows.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Because it's, I struggle with it. I guess everybody struggles with it. I'm not sure. But I struggled with it when I was a teenager of trying to it's very hard to just express who you actually are.
And how you feel.
Yeah, and how you feel, because there's so much fear of judgment, and if it's running against the status quo of the school, the friendship group, or whatever it is, all this stuff gets laid on and it gets a little bit more difficult. I think that's one of the joys about life is being able to slowly express or find out more of who you are and actually express that without too much external egoic bias or something going on.
Yeah, and I think that's a role that we men really play. So I run a men's group every Saturday, so I talk to a lot of men on a regular basis and I hear their experiences. And I've learned very quickly, we often decide what's normal. Women are really quickly at seeing what's happening and jumping in and go like, oh, I'll help you here, I'll help you there. And we men get the pull away. And what I've learned to do in the dojo is I've learned to sort of make things normal. I've created a different level of normalcy. For the kids, for example, they come into our dojo and they're super anxious. They have to get onto the mats. Probably smells like sweat and fear and blood, I'm sure. And I immediately instill this new level of normal onto them. Like, it's okay to be anxious. That you'd be crazy not to be anxious, because what you're feeling right now are butterflies. That anxiety that you're feeling is a driver to do something. And if you're so aware of that anxiety and that it's wrong, it's going to take you over. It's going to take complete control of you. Or it can go, my body's actually getting itself ready. It's getting ready for a challenge, and I'm just going to let it do its thing, and I'm not going to think anything of it other than just observe it. So, struggling as a teenager, of course, you don't know how the world works. And the worst part is you think you do.
That is the worst part.
Yeah. No, Mom, I've got it all figured out. I'm 18. I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, I mean, each day that passes for me, the more I'm like, man, I know nothing.
Yeah.
I know less than nothing. It gets more and more confusing the more you zoom out.
the knowing nothing, I agree with that and I don't agree with that. So it might be a good leeway into that San Pedro experience that I talked to you about before.
Let's do it.
So I had my first San Pedro, which is a cactus, a psychedelic experience. I think this was 5.5 years ago. And beforehand, I didn't have a perception of how reality worked. I wasn't even aware that I could understand. I felt like I was just this thing that was thrown into the world and you figure it out. And everything that comes my way, I'll just figure it out as it comes. And when I had this experience, I had this matrix experience. I had this realization that I could fundamentally understand life. And that's when I went, in the moment, I might not understand, A, B, or C. That might be I do a martial art and there's a move that I don't know, or there might be something going on in your life I'm not aware of. But I'm aware that it's possible for me to grasp the matrix that's around it. The fundamental theoretical framework of life. And the way that started was, I won't give too much information, otherwise you'll get lost in details. But a friend and I, he knew he wasn't going to see me for a long time because I was going to emigrate to Australia from the Netherlands. We walked in the forest together and just walked and just spent time together. And then when I went back to my place with him to have another chat, we cycled back. And as we cycled back, it happened. I saw this guy with these two girls talking, and as I laid my eyes upon them, I could immediately see the relations between the three of them. Instantaneously, I could see she was interested in him, and he was interested in her, as it happened. And with that, a fear was unlocked. So...
A fear?
Yeah.
And is this whilst you're in the experience?
I'm in the experience of San Pedro.
Okay.
It's a fear that was unlocked that never really left me. So if you talk to someone about politics, Trump and Kamala Harris, and they're all upset about that and worried about it, and you go, it's a whole freaking circus. And you want to engage with them and you want to be empathetic to them and go like, oh yeah, I can see that you're really supportive of Kamala Harris and not of Trump. And you go, I don't really care. Because I can see all the relations and why would you worry about that? That was a fear that I unlocked that day where I realized it is actually possible to fundamentally understand how life operates and lose that connection with people. And I thought I was insane. I still think I'm insane. I probably am.
So was the fear when you say lose connection with people, that's the fear.
That was the fear.
The more that you understand.
The more you understand
that perspective,
the more you can pull away your emotions. Because if you understand why something operates the way it does, you don't need emotions anymore. If someone is upset about something, you can see how they've done that to themselves, or how that needed to happen to them in that moment because it's going to make them better in the future. It's really hard to show emotions then because you're like, I get what's going on here.
Yeah, what is there to be emotional for?
What is there to be emotional about? Just, I suppose that's the compassion part. And then the next layer would be, what was it again? Unwavering. There's a different word for it. You go from empathetic to compassionate to...
Certainty?
No.
Empathetic, compassionate.
There's a level
in terms of the different levels of emotions.
It's indifference, but less negative. Do you know what I mean? Equanimity.
Equanimity.
You get that sense of equanimity. It just is. I'm not compassionate towards you. I just see it for what it is. That's a fear I had that day, and it sometimes still pops up. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense to me. I actually I don't know where I saw this diagram at one point in time that roughly explained this kind of idea, and I don't know what it was coined, but for me explaining it can be called the pendulum of understanding. So you can imagine a pendulum. On this side is positive and this side is negative.
Yeah.
And we've got the swing in the middle that swings back and forward.
Yeah.
And we're sitting on this pendulum, and and this pendulum of understanding, it is what it is. When we're at the bottom of it, is, let's say, that's our lowest form of awareness, our lowest form of consciousness that we're capable of as a human. When we're at the bottom of this pendulum, that's when it has the capacity to swing the furthest from positive to negative. And
as in the amplitude increases as, the energetic charge increases.
Exactly, yes.
So the lowest part is going to be deeper because the highest part.
Correct. That's exactly right. So you can imagine that pendulum like a clock, like an old clock, is a sliding scale. And the higher in which you raise your understanding or awareness or correct perspective or whatever kind of thing, enlightenment we want to coin it, the higher up the pendulum, the less it swings to the left or to the right, the less it has the capacity to swing to the positive or negative until you reach the central point of the pendulum where the thing's connected, right up at the source where it doesn't move.
You get the singularity.
You got the singularity. It doesn't move from positive to negative. You're not in that sort of flux. You're sitting right in the middle, just watching what's going on. So you can look down and see the pendulum and everything swinging back and forward. But you're in the center with it not happening to you. And when I heard that sort of simple analogy, I was like, fuck, that really speaks to me in terms of the more awareness you have of a situation, like you have an argument with a friend, when you don't really know what's going on, you can think about this and think about the positives and the negatives of what happened. But the more you learn about their situation and then, you drive into their situation, you zoom out further. Yeah, you do find yourself in that sort of singularity where it's like, oh, is there anyone to be mad at?
Yeah, well, it makes you laugh. And I think laughing is something very, very important. The last year, 2024, I've really tried to introduce humor into everything. Because when someone goes through a hardship that they've created themselves, let's say they have, and you can see that this is definitely going to improve them, and you shouldn't take that away from them. You shouldn't make them feel better because they need to feel that pain. You can laugh at it. Or even myself. Like I do an ice bath every Sunday. We did it today, and every Sunday I hate it. every Sunday, the little kid inside of me, I goes, I don't want to go in. It's going to be cold. It's going to be miserable. And I just laugh at it. Go like, oh, here you go again. You do this every week. You're not going to get out of this. It's not like we're not going to go into the ice bath. So the fact that you can laugh at it, it softens it. And the pendulum might actually be an interesting topic to talk about. So whenever you have an emotion works in a sort of a figure 8, where you've got a very strong emotion, you pull back, you go the other way, you go to the other side. And that's why you need emotions, because emotions do give you a lot of information. But if I relate this to, say, Aikido, I am very fortunate to work with a very well-known martial artist, Joe Tambu, and he's got 54 years of Aikido experience. And one thing that he does really well is when someone pushes, he pulls. When someone pulls, he pushes. I think I shouldn't mess this up. I think he's 62 or 61 years old. He's about double my age. And the amount of force this man can produce is ridiculous. Because he can give what I take and take what I give. Whereas a lot of times when people do martial arts, they really tense up, like the emotion. Like, oh, I need to win, or, oh, this person is going to do that. How am I going to respond? And as you get better as a martial artist, you learn to soften, take the emotion out, which is essentially the same thing as what we just talked about.
Yeah, it's interesting that you can begin applying that concept to kind of every area of your life. Once you understand the concept, that is. You mentioned this men's group. I want to kind of get an idea on. I know we're touching on different topics, but I want to get an understanding of why you do what you do, essentially, to get a better understanding of who you are. In terms of the men's groups, what purpose does that serve? How did you begin doing that? What's it for? What is it?
It started out during lockdown. This was 2020. I just got in a relationship with my current partner, and life was pure chaos. And at the time, I was walking with a Dutch friend of mine, and one day we decided to add a bit of spice. So he had 2 jerry cans, I had 2 jerry cans, and we'd just go as far as we could. And the thing was, I wanted to make sure that he dropped his jerry cans for me. And he obviously wanted the opposite, because, we're bashing heads, which is something that we needed. We needed to have that friction.
Yeah.
To sort of have the mental friction go into the physical. And we felt so amazing after. It was such a release that we kept doing it, and we started inviting other guys. And my partners helped me formulate it and turn it into what's now called Carry and Connect, which is literally you carry weights and then you connect. And
love that concept, by the way.
It is so simple. Anyone who hears this will go, oh yeah, whatever. Join one session and you'll get it. It's the carrying load together, realizing that you're interdependent, and understanding what someone goes through. Because what often happens, I'll bring some ridiculous weight, like 90 kilos, and I'll carry that for a while. And at some point I'll drop it and it's okay, who's next? And I see one of the guys picked it up and carry it. And I can see the pain they're going through. And I can see how they respond to that pain. And in that moment, I know exactly who they are. And at the start of Carry and Connect, it was all about carrying heavy and smashing ourselves every week. And then the talking, the connecting was sort of like a side note. But over time, I realized men actually don't talk. We've had numerous amount of men that would come over and just break down into tears. And if you'd see them, you go, you? And crying? But because they finally felt safe, they finally felt seen, they finally felt that they were a part of something bigger than themselves, the most beautiful things came out. And the most simple of worries were expressed. Like one guy was saying, I've got a 15-year-old daughter and she's got a boyfriend now. And her and her boyfriend are in her room and I'm just worried. Like, what's it going to be like when she has sex with this boy? And what if he mistreats her? And you can sort of chuckle at this. But like, it's a real worry.
Of course.
And then one of the guys who's a bit older is like, oh yeah, I've gone through that. This is how I've done it. Or one other guy's like, oh, I'm about to become a father. I'm really worried that I'm not going to be able to connect to this child. I'm not going to love it. And then another guy goes, oh, I've gone through that. That's totally normal. Or a guy that has trouble with his wife. It's like, oh, we don't have time to have sex anymore. I don't feel like she's here for me or she loves me. And the guy's like, yep, that's normal. That happens a lot. So every week you get to hear what you're going through is absolutely normal. You're not alone.
Mm.
And it is.
So is that an intention now? Like, are people rocking up with the intention of talking, or it still is just a natural byproduct of getting together and doing something hard?
No, intention is not the talking, actually. You know, my personal intention was I just love the carrying aspect. If nobody show up, I do it by myself.
You're going to pick up something heavy. And
I
you're gonna
will pick
walk.
up something heavy and I'll do that forever.
How far are you guys walking?
We started out 3 kilometers and then we started to shorten it because we realized if we go a bit heavier, then it takes more time and we needed to have enough time to talk. And we understand that all the men that come that are busy, they've got wives, they've got kids, they've got work and all. No, I think right now we do 2 kilometers. And the fact that the intention is not to talk, that's a byproduct. That really works for the men.
Yeah.
Because what we say to the guys, just show up. Go for a walk with us. You don't even have to carry anything. Go for a walk and say hi. Because I understand as you get a bit older, walking up to someone and talking to them about your life, that's freaking hard.
It can be quite intense.
It's super intense, especially with someone like me that has his shirt off and no shoes, carries his body weight and yells. I know. Like last Saturday we had a end of year get together, and I wanted to make it particularly spicy and really reinforce that feeling of interdependentness. So what I did is I had this massive tarp. I got 180 kilo Sandbag, so 180. That's massive in the middle, and there were about 17 guys there, and I said, this group is going to bring this back to the other side and back. You figure it out how you do it. And what happens, I joined. At the first, they were all worried, like, oh, what's going to happen to my back? And can we actually make this? And 10 seconds into it, they got it. Because they realized we need to get this to the other side as a group. And then we did the same with the sled and a few other things. And afterwards, we talked about our year, about the hardships we've gone through, the things we want to improve. And everyone was dialed in. Anytime anyone talked, everyone was listening. Because like I'm kind of listening to myself right now because I feel so connected to you. I realize your hardships are my hardships. By listening to you, I can learn about myself. And that deep of a connection, we just don't get anymore. You know,
it's difficult to find.
Oh, man.
It's really difficult to find environments like that where everybody is switched on and showing up and ready to listen.
Yeah. And if you talk to another man, there's always sort of this mask. Oh, I want him to think of me a certain way. I want him to appreciate me. I want him to think I'm tough. And, you know, I recently did a jiu-jitsu grading at a Australian elite team. And at the end, what they did, they whipped you with their belt as hard as they could. You walk through and it's just whack, whack. And the aim was to walk through and accept it. And I was smiling. I freaking loved it.
Loved it.
And the faces you get, like, I trust you now. Because you can be anyone you want to be when you're relaxed. When things are going well, you can smile, you can pretend to be intelligent and clever and social and dependable, but then when shit gets hard, when you're in pain and suffering, we got a 90 kilo Sandbag on your shoulders.
You can't hide who you are.
You cannot hide who you are. You cannot hide. And it also is an opportunity for us to teach you on how to behave. Because we men, we teach each other on what's right and what's wrong. And sometimes I'm too aggressive and the guys go like, hey, maybe use different words. I used the word violence recently, and I said, like, you need to think about that word. I went, oh, cool.
What word did you use instead?
I was a bit more careful with using that word violence because, you know, violence is something that's really important to me.
Yeah.
Because violence is misunderstood.
What's violence to you?
Violence is not directed at anything. So it's not like violence, like, oh, I'm violent, so I want to hurt you, I want to murder, I want to rape, I want to destroy. Violence is a state. It just is. And if I have a 90 kilo Sandbag on my shoulders, that's doing violence to myself because that's horrible.
Yeah.
Like I had a challenge where I had to carry that 90 kilo for an hour and I had to be dark. I had to be miserable and I just had to accept the pain. And there was violence. And during that grading, jiu-jitsu, 20 minutes of having guys smashing me, that was violence. It wasn't that they're doing it to me, they're just doing it, and I just need to take it.
It's just happening.
It's just happening.
Yeah.
And the problem is because people don't allow violence into their life, it gets bigger and bigger and it goes out of control. But because I deal with violence on a regular basis, violence to me is a very normal thing. And because I can handle violence quite well, I can handle teenagers a lot better. If I run a class and the kids are, being super nasty to me, I can handle it. It doesn't upset me anymore.
Do you think violence is something that should be pushed down and muted?
No. Going back to life is a game, I don't think there's any components to life that have no function. I think everything has a function. And if you think it has no function, your understanding is lacking. Suffering, pain, misery, death, destruction, especially if you start to understand that life might not really end after death. I think violence is a very necessary thing. We had a karate grading yesterday, and there was this tiny girl, like this high, maybe even smaller, and she had to get onto the match, and she was crying and crying and crying. And her dad was trying to get onto the mats. A couple of other kids were trying. And I got down to one knee and talked to her. And what I wanted to show, this is going to sound really messed up. I will explain. What I tried to show her, there's no way out. There is no way you can turn away and walk away. Because I don't want that for you. Your dad doesn't want that for you. Because you will remember that for the rest of your life. If you walk away now, that feeling will always have control over you. And I don't want that for you.
If you let it win in that moment.
If you let it win. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to help you by understanding why you're feeling what you're feeling. And I'm going to allow you to take that step yourself. But you're not backing away. Because I don't want you to be afraid. And I said to her, I'm worried. I am not good at public speaking. I lead many groups and I consider myself to be pretty decent at it. But I had an awards night recently with the dojo that I talked about earlier. And I got in front of 130 people and I was not comfortable. And when I feel that, I'm like, okay, so you're anxious. Who cares? Get out there, do it. Because if you can't get out there and talk about whatever you need to talk about, what right do you have to talk about this at all? You have no right. Because these people love you. I hope.
Hopefully they do.
Yeah. They want you to succeed. So in that moment, I did violence to her, but with love. Like, I don't want you to don't back away. Walk into it. Don't go underneath it. Don't go over it. Don't talk to it. Go into it. And that requires a bit of violence. So violence is fundamentally misunderstood.
And it is, I know it does come down to semantics, but it is important. And I appreciate you trying to, giving your explanation of it, because these words can get thrown around and they mean so much, and they can get thrown around in such a small way that can be misconstrued. It's quite hard to define. I'm sure you line up 10 people, they've got a different idea of what violence means to them. And
they're semi-straight.
There's violence, then there's brutality, and there's all the things that come from it. But I like the idea of violence in terms of or like an internal state that can exist, regardless of the taking away the damage that can possibly be done from it.
Look, if someone listening still goes like, nah, I'm not accepting that, I'll give you an example that sets the record straight away. Fasting. I do fasting regularly, every 3 months, 5 days. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm doing violence to my body. Cells are going to die. Cells are going to die. My muscles are going to be eaten up. The bacteria in my gut are going to be destroyed. That's doing violence to myself, because I understand that this is necessary. Because if I don't do that, given how much food we're eating nowadays and how frequently, I'm going to get diabetes, I'm going to get cancer. So it's necessary. A part of that little girl had to die in that moment. She had to reconsider who she was. You're not that little anymore. You're getting a bit older. You can do this. And then we will help you get there. You need to let a part of you die in that moment. Because that's life. Life and death. I mean, if all you do is seek out life, you become insufferable. You become absolutely insufferable. Like you think you're on top of the world, like everyone loves you and you're great. But In the meantime, everybody goes, oh, there comes that person again. Jesus.
Mm.
And I want to be that person that goes into your face and tells you exactly what you need to hear. You're going to be uncomfortable. Great.
Do you like it when people treat you like that as well? Do you like that
Oh, yeah.
approach, that way of communicating?
Yeah, I'm Dutch. we Dutch are very blunt.
Are you by nature just straight up?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like I don't always do it to people, but what I try to do is I try to get a deep connection with someone and, you know, really talk about where you are at, where I am at. And once I love you and see you as a brother, I will tell you exactly what you need to hear, and I'll tell you things that you do not want to hear. And every time you tell me something I don't want to hear and I walk away, you can tell me off. Because that's what I expect real friends to do.
It's difficult to build that sort of connection in a brotherhood, no?
Yeah.
I feel like people struggle with that.
People struggle with that because they don't realize that they really need each other. So there's one guy I'll highlight, James. He's part of the Care and Connect. He's part of the Inner Circle, the executives. Him and I are very different. I think we both have ADHD. He has a different kind of ADHD than I do. He's very much here, and I'm very much straightforward. And often because I'm so concerned about the bigger picture, I tend to forget how it comes across to people. And he just goes, hey, that person does have a lower back issue. Maybe they need to go lighter. And I go, I trust you. Okay, cool. Or sometimes I'll ask him, like, hey, how did today go? He's like, oh, you're a bit too full on with that person. I went, cool. And sometimes with him, he'll say something about himself. I'm like, that's not true. It's not who you are at all. You're running away from yourself. And he looks me in the eye and he looks at my intention, and my intention is love. He'll go, okay, cool, gotcha.
You're not there just trying to harm him for no reason.
No.
Yeah.
Why would I? Because when you move from consciousness slowly to self, I'm not saying that I'm self-realized. I hope I'd like to get there at one point, but I'm getting there. And I now realize that what is me doesn't stop here. What is me is way beyond my skin. I realize that you and I are exactly the same. I realize that any person I'll ever meet is me, essentially. We all come from the same place. We go back to the same place. We relate to one another. We rely on one another. So why would I not try and support you? And supporting doesn't always mean I'm going to do everything for you. Sometimes I'm going to make your life very hard because that's what needs to happen. But the intention is good. And if you are in the right place, you will be able to receive that. And if you can't receive it, okay, all right, bye.
It is what it is. You just leave it.
Yeah.
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
How did you become like this?
Ooh.
Like, is this a...
Ooh, are you ready?
I'm ready. Tell me. I want to know.
It's going to sound very cliche. It is very cliche, but ayahuasca.
I'll get you to pull this just a little bit closer. Awesome. Thanks, man. Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca in Iquitos, the best place on earth apparently to do that. So I finished my sports science, which was about 8 years ago. And I was traveling the world with a friend of mine. I was in Chile and Peru and whatnot, Bolivia. And we were sort of thinking about what do we want to do during these few weeks. And we were going through a catalog and I saw Iquitos. I knew nothing about Iquitos. I knew nothing about ayahuasca. And somehow a part of me went, I need to go there. It was almost like a little voice said, go there.
Mm.
And he didn't really want to go. And I said, look, this is something I need to do for myself. And he was about to go off on his own and leave me. I'm like, there is a part of me that says, go.
Yeah.
So we went to Iquitos and, there were all these tours, all these boat tours. And one guy started talking to us and started offering a few things. We went, cool, Amazonian rainforest, great, awesome. And he's like, do you want to try combo and ayahuasca? And I went, combo, ayahuasca, what's that? So I started looking up, going like, look into the research. Am I going to die? Is it like some poison? Combo is frog poison, by the way, which was an entirely different experience. So he said, hey, fuck it, let's go. Let's do this, right? So we, a couple of days later, we went to the rainforest, and it wasn't even ayahuasca that set this in motion. It was something before that. We went into the boat, and as we got close to the place where we were staying, we heard some rustling near the river. So we went over to have a look, and there was this anteater and a monkey, and they were climbing me, and I got this such a strong connection to nature there. I could just feel nature all around me, and I got back in the boat and I started crying because I've been living in the Netherlands. I've been living in a concrete block my entire life, and it just feels such a fundamental connection to everything around you was surreal. And that sort of set the stage for the next thing, because a couple of days later we first did combo, we did snuff where they shoot tobacco up your nose.
Oh, the tobacco, yeah,
it's horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, have you done it?
I've actually got all the stuff to do it here,
Ooh.
but I've actually never done it yet. I haven't done it.
I'll give you a brief description of what it's like. It's like a fireball in your brain. It's like,
because what's the purpose? Do you know the purpose of it traditionally, of why it's used? I don't fully know.
Look, I'm not qualified for this to explain it properly, but I'll tell you my perspective at the moment. So ayahuasca is, the one. That's the one that's going to help you move forward, but you need to be ready for it. So you get a dieta, which is mostly vegetables and lots of fasting and certain water. The combo, which is the frog poison, that's going to clear your system. And then
is this the one that they burn onto you?
I think I still have the dots.
Yeah.
I've got 3 dots here.
Right on.
Yeah, that's freaky, freaky too. But yeah, the snuff is supposed to clear you. It's supposed to rid you of evil spirits. I don't know.
It's a cleansing of some
It's a
sort.
cleansing. Yeah, it's a preparation. Because, as I say, Lady Ayahuasca talks to you.
Yeah.
Lady Ayahuasca tells you exactly what you need to hear. Well, not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's a good point.
This is going to be cool. I wonder what you think in a moment. So we, middle of the night, we had a shaman, and he invited us to his little place in the middle of the rainforest, and it was dark. He did his rituals. He had a big cigar, and he was chanting and whatnot, and sprayed us with some agua something. And I took, and it was horrible. I didn't vomit. I was pretty proud of that. It was hard. Nothing happened for a while. And then they gave us a little bit more, and then it happened. I got these really, really powerful visions. And those visions were so all-empowering that they made me come to Australia. They made me realize what I'm capable of. They actually turned me into, I call myself, it's a bit wanky, but I call myself a berserker. And that's because of that experience. It started off with this massive demon with black horns coming for me, trying to drag me back to hell. And my first response is jump on its skull, grab its 2 horns, and split it apart. And then I had this massive wolf, kind of like from Ragnarok.
Yeah.
That tried to bite me and kill me. And I jumped up and I reached into his throat and pulled out its spine, and it just disintegrated. And then I stood there, and I had all these spiders and larvae and worms and all kinds of insects crawl over me. I remained unaffected. I saw these red eyes in the dark looking at me, trying to scare me, and I looked straight back, and I felt this veil of fire around me. And that feeling that I can, coming back to violence, destroy anything in my way if I need to, it's just made that I'm not so afraid anymore.
So it's stripped some of that fear away.
Stripped of all, not stripped of my weakness, but just my belief that I am unable to. Because coming to Australia on my own, leaving my family behind and just building a new life here. I remember my mom hugging me, realizing she was probably never going to see me again. I just walked off. I was like, this is a decision I'm making. And I was crying all the way for about 40 hours.
Yeah.
It was a decision that I made. But that experience that I had on ayahuasca made me realize I can do this. I know what I'm capable of fundamentally.
Fortified you.
Yeah, and what Jay saw that day with that sandbag, that's who I am. That's what I provide to anyone that I come in contact with. I think anytime you've got a group of people together, we all provide personas, energies. And my energy is, I jump into things. I'm willing to die. And that's been really hard in martial arts because I'd always muscle my way into things and try to it took a while to get rid of that. But yeah.
Did it take time to refine that intensity? Do you have to refine intensity like that?
You do. So when we just met, I could tell I was still pretty intense, and I could tell that you noticed. And at the start, I didn't want to show my intensity to people because I didn't want to intimidate them. I didn't want them to be worried. I didn't want them to be afraid. And later I realized you don't have to. If you just show someone, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, you can rely on me when shit gets hard. I'll be the first person to jump in. I'll be the first person to try and wrestle and tussle when a bear comes. And number one, it took a while to not pull that away. But I remember every time I talked about myself as a warrior, I go, oh, here you go. Yeah, you're a warrior, or you're a berserker. You try and make yourself look cool. But over time, I started to sense it, that feeling. Like when I listen to Viking music and like a berserker music, I feel it. I feel like this wave.
Feel the fire.
I feel this fire. And that's also sort of the shirt.
I like it.
That signifies it.
So was it to just to make sure I understand you? Was it difficult earlier on where you were trying to hold that fire down to some degree, hold it back from people?
Yeah, because our society, especially like Australians, I love them. They're great. They're very, very social. They're very relaxed, but their interactions are generally pretty shallow. And for you to be quite intense and just get in there and say what you need to say is really confronting to people. They don't like it at all. It's only when they start to realize who you are as a person that they'll appreciate you for it.
Yeah.
And the guys now understand who I am as a person. They appreciate the energy that I bring because every week I'm there. Every week I fire up. And they love me for it.
You're right, though. I think, yeah, since you've said that, I'm thinking about just Australian culture in general. And obviously, when you generalize stuff, you're missing out on a few people. But on average, we have this idea of it's like, relax, man, like chill.
Yeah.
We don't.
Take it easy. What do you mean take it easy? Why?
Take it easy. We can't deal. We don't want to deal. We don't want to deal with shit, basically. We want to kick back. We want to relax. We want to have a good time. And I think fundamentally, we do miss that element a lot of the time where we do result in, shitty, shallow conversations, and we get easily offended if somebody tells the truth to you. And the truth can be difficult.
Oh, the truth is the most difficult because it forces you to reconsider. Yeah, I don't have any number to tell you, but the amount of Australians that use antidepressants is really high.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, his wife, went out with a couple of friends, and I think 75% of them were taking antidepressants. And I think antidepressants has everything to do with someone not expressing that fire. Because when I'm fired up, when I'm switched on, I just am. There's no thought there. Like, one of the things I'm working on is I'm trying to lift a certain weight to my shoulders. And it's heavy.
How heavy?
180 kilos.
Jesus.
So I got 160 to my shoulders in one go. I got the 180 kilo sandbag to my shoulder in 2 goes. But I haven't been able to do it in one. And in that moment, I'm not there. That's just, what's the word again that we talked about, Cheese?
Equanimity.
No. The violence. In that moment, it's violence because, if I were to really think about it, do I want to lift this 180 kilo to my shoulder? No, because I could hurt myself. And
you have to bring violence to the table to make that happen.
You have to bring violence to the table to make that happen. And when people see it, they love it. For any high-level athlete to like a CrossFit Games, that's violence. Man, the risk and the stress you put your body on there, the risk for your knees and your lower back, but why would you do it? Because that's life.
Why do you do it?
Because it's who I am. And people sense that if you walk your own path, people sense it. They look at you and go, God, you're really real, aren't you? And I want more of that because we can tell when something is not authentic. We can tell when someone is really real and has that connection to themselves, and someone that puts on a mask. And with me, it's not always pretty. I tend to be really assertive, too switched on. I try to force my will onto people, but that's who I am. And I'm critical. I look at myself and I reconsider, like, oh, is that the right thing to do or is it not? But people want real connection. That's what we all crave.
I agree.
And real connection is hard.
And it's often not pretty. You're right.
It's not pretty,
But it is beautiful. Might not be pretty, but it is beautiful. Real connection.
Yeah.
Where truth is being transmitted in some way, where an honesty is happening between people.
Yeah.
Nothing feels better. Far out, that feels good.
And I think the reason why is we like to not think. I think that's an interesting one. I think that we don't want to think as people. Because as soon as you start to think, you start to go into the past, you start to go into the future, you're not in the present. And in the present is where all your power lies. And if I have a conversation with you and I constantly have to think about, oh, am I saying the right thing? How do I come across? What does he think of me? Then I'm not here. But if I fully trust the moment, I fully trust that what's going on here, I can be. If I have a good conversation, I'm not here. If I have a good conversation with you, I'm not even thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm not planning at all. It's just you say something, and in that moment I go, this feels right. And then you say this, and then go, that feels right. And this feels right.
So interesting you say that, because there is this idea. I guess until you start feeling it in some way or another. For a lot of guys, it's sport usually, or something physical where your ego drops away. Or when I say your ego, the internal chatter, the internal dialogue.
That's better. That's a good way to describe it.
The self-analysis person that exists in there. When that drops away, before it drops away, there's this, and I've felt this, there's this idea that if I'm not thinking about it, nothing's there. Like if I'm not thinking about it, if that chatter isn't happening, then nothing will be happening. How am I supposed to function? Until you start immersing yourself in, for instance, a good conversation or wherever people find it, where that egoic part of you does drop away, and that's the beginning of it. Like that's where it all starts. Like that's where I found for me, like my body, my mind, everything actually starts functioning properly without this self-analysis hindering everything and just
mechanics
getting in the way. Exactly.
That's binary to non-binary.
The observer just fucking it all up.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. If I were to compare a high-level martial artist to not high-level martial artists, they flow. Oh, they flow. They can talk to you about whatever, and in the meantime, whoop, get you down to the floor. Like another coach that I greatly admire is Nino's from Australian Elite Team. I think he's got 24 years of experience, and this guy's massive. I think he's more than 2 meters long. I think he's about 130, 140 kilos of weight. He's in #1 gym in Australia right now for jiu-jitsu, number 10 in the world. And when he moves, wow.
Yeah.
It just happens. There's no mind there. It just happens. And it's like art. When I see that, I almost tear up when I see it. Yeah.
Movement.
Yeah.
Beautiful movement.
Yeah, but it's just that's effort. That's breaking your body down. I mean, Joe Tembu, he did a demo recently, and I actually got emotional when I watched him, because the level of skill, he spent 54 years on his art, and then seeing him move, he's not there. There's no ego there. There's no reflection on what he did it right or wrong, and he's super humble. He's way too humble, I think. Both of them are way too humble. I'm like, take your place, man. You've earned it.
So what martial arts do you practice?
At the moment, Aikido.
Yeah.
Which is wrist locks, weaponry, throws, and so forth. Jiu-jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-jitsu, which is grappling, submissions, a little bit of wrestling, just a little bit. Muay Thai kickboxing, which is elbows, knees, kicks, clinching. And I teach self-defense. Self-defense is a class that I teach every Thursday, and it involves everything. So no gloves, no padding, striking, throat strikes, pushing, knives, everything.
The good stuff.
Yep. And
How long have you been doing martial arts for? Like, when did you begin?
I was 6 when I started with judo, and I've done that for 10 years. I've done Chinese kickboxing for 6, Sanna, they call it. I've done Sistema for a little while, which is a Russian combat system. Yeah, I think that's about it. I've done some seminars on self-defense as well, but yeah, it's just become a second nature.
I'd like to ask you because one of the previous episodes I've had is with, for the sake of explaining our connection, I'll just say my brother. And my family have done Aikido and other martial arts for a long time.
Good.
And I'm pretty sure Joe Tambu's trained with my dad, actually.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I think they would have. That kind of Aikido world is a small world in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
But I had my brother on, and he was talking about the differences between, like he's worked security and sort of had to put some of this stuff into practice professionally, where the differences between the real situation, having to do this stuff in real life as opposed to under a context of sport. I wanted to ask you on what your perspective is when it comes to thinking about martial arts and self-defense and learning it under a sport context, but then applying it under a place with less or no rules.
I've got a good answer for you. So beforehand, we were talking about a principle that applies to area 1, but it also applies to area 2. We talked about that at the very start. Remember?
Yeah.
Once you understand martial arts on a deeper level, especially because if you've done it for a certain period of time, and even more so if you've done several, you start to understand very key concepts that apply anywhere, anytime. In Aikido, for example, your center of gravity is everything. If you lose your center of gravity, you lose your ability to exert power. If you don't project yourself forward properly, you cannot strike properly. If you disconnect your arms from the rest of your body, so instead of striking like this, you strike like this, that's a world of difference. And once you grasp those principles on a deeper level, they will always stay with you. Like one thing that will always stay with me is if I try to move you, the first thing I do is I work the areas that you can't protect as much. Like in Aikido, they do wrist locks. They don't do elbow locks or shoulder locks. Because if I can push your finger like that, you're going to go down. But just pushing your finger the right way and projecting my energy the right way, I can move you. You have no option getting out there. How do I know that's true? Coming back to Sensei, double my age pushes me down and there's no control I have. Or in Jiu-Jitsu, if I control your head, if I can push your head that way, your spine cannot go that way. It doesn't matter how much force you apply. If I do an ankle lock on you or a toe bar, there's nothing you can do. So that's something that always applies. Another thing that also applies, emotions. If I can instill an emotion into you, you're playing my game because now you're responding to me. If I can remain emotionless and you're getting angry or upset or jealous, you're losing. Because you're the rat and you're the rat and I'm the cat. So what I'm trying to get at is if you haven't done martial arts for long enough, if you haven't looked deeply into it enough, yes, you're going to run into issues because you think it's just A, B, C, D, E.
Do this, do that. They do this, I do that.
Oh,
simple.
Yeah. Jiu-Jitsu would maybe be, if you've got a little bit of extra experience, close the distance properly, protect yourself, get your hand into the neck, get them to the floor, and then let's say you're in their close guard, which is they've got your legs around you and you're trying to pass. No, punch him in the face, for example. Punch him in the face. Like if you were in between someone's legs, you're not going to try and pass their legs. No, you punch them in the face and then you do that. But if all you've done is jiu-jitsu, you just follow that route.
You get captured by a rule set.
Yeah. And that's why I like self-defense so much. With self-defense, what I've done is I've, all the martial arts I've learned from 6 till now, I've looked at the stuff that I really liked and I've taken out all the stuff that I didn't like. And one thing that I have never liked about martial arts, it doesn't have the human aspect.
What do you mean by that?
Your ability to utilize technique the right way, your ability to sense and feel depends on where you are in that moment.
Okay.
So let's say we would do sparring right now. We haven't known each other for that long. We've talked a little bit, so there's a little bit of trust, but very likely your ability to exert technique in that moment is very poor. If we do a bit of rolling, I talk to you about things, I make you uncomfortable, and I let you relax and come back. Then if you do those same techniques, you're going to be a lot better. So my first point of interest is I want to make sure that you can be. So there's no emotions. You know why you're there. You trust me to a deeper degree. And every time I can tell you're stressed, we go back. And at the end, what we do a vulnerability. We show our vulnerability where we say, thank you for looking after my body today. I think you did great. And being aware of my faults. We say this out loud. And we often start off with throat strikes, kicking, punching without padding, without protection. Then we sit down, have a talk about whatever. When I can tell everyone's breath is come back and chill, we go on to wrestling, throwing. Once again, we sit down, we chill. We go into submissions, we go on to grappling, sit down and chill. We do 2 minutes of intense sparring where we just beat the shit out of each other in a safe manner. And then they lay down, do their breath work, relax, do that vulnerability exercise. Because now you're relating the act to the person involved.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable, if you don't trust me, you are not going to learn. Because you're more concerned with your safety than learning technique A, B, or C.
It's difficult to get fully into it when you're trying to work out if I put myself in a vulnerable position for this person to learn.
Yep.
What are they going to do?
Yeah, because if you've got kids, you're a father first.
Mm.
It'd be ridiculous to risk your own well-being for one class and then not being a father. Because you can't get out there and get stuff done for the world. That'd be ridiculous. It's a risk assessment.
Yeah.
And I take that very serious.
So you need good training partners.
You need good training
who
partners.
Can show up with you.
And you need someone that in the moment can say, you're not ready for that. Let's pull it back. Because with the sparring, what I do, if I can see you're at a certain level, say you haven't done it for long enough, I go, you're going with me. Because I can handle you. But as soon as you're calm enough, relaxed enough, I go, okay, you can spar that person. Because I know you're not going to hurt that person.
Yeah.
And with martial arts, it's very structured. It's very much a product where, they've got this plan where you do technique 1, and you build on that, and in technique 2, you build on that, or you do certain combinations. I'm like, where's the human aspect? Have we talked before? Have we talked about your wife? Have we talked about your kids, about your work? Because you need to know that I care about you as a person. I'm not just here to smash you.
So it's the connection, building that.
Yeah. And I'm very proud to say that one guy in particular, it's not a very popular class, which I'm happy with because that way I can focus more. There's one guy, no martial arts experience prior to the self-defense, and he's a dangerous man now. He's not a man you want to face. Oh, he makes me suffer. I love it. I love it.
How do you bring in the training aspect? One of the things that, and I'll try and explain it so it makes sense. One of the things that I've that is a conversation that I've heard happen in martial arts between sport martial arts and then self-defense martial arts. One's with a tighter rule set and one's without. One of the beautiful things about training in a sport environment with a tight rule set is you can dial up the intensity quite a lot without somebody getting hurt, because there's padding and there's a lot more rules in place that there's less real vulnerabilities that can really hurt you, you know? But in terms of a self-defense side of things where you're training more lethal strikes, you're training without padding, you're trying to end things quicker without the scope of the rule set, it suddenly makes the intensity of that training so much more dicey, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you balance that sort of training where trying to get some intensity into the self-defense element without people getting hurt?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I'll try and generalize a little bit here so it makes more sense. I've got these quantum principles that I utilize, which work for any area. Yeah,
I love that.
It's called hierarchy.
Yeah,
hierarchy. You see that everywhere. Everywhere you look, in whether that's in chemistry or physics or business or martial arts or social dynamics, hierarchy is there. And what I look at with hierarchy is what's the most important thing. Is you need to be able to have control of your emotions. So if someone comes in and I can tell that they're not in control of their emotions, I add a bit more technique, make things a lot harder to speed up. So we might do, I'll put you in a clinch and I'm going to put all my weight on you and you need to slow your breath down, and I'm going to talk to you constantly and I'm going to slowly tell you how to get out there. Because now you've got the emotional experience, you got the foundation, like, oh, I'm actually okay. I felt like I was dying, but I was fine. And then once you've got that emotional foundation, you go on to the next layer, and that might be like, okay, how can I stop that from happening? And then the top layer would be, how can I plan around so that that never happens? So the first thing I do when I do self-defense is I want to make sure you got your emotions in check. So this is sports science, dial down the West skill, which is weight, eccentrics, and skill. So I'm gonna make it super safe, super simple. I'll give you the experience, get you to realize that feeling like you're dying doesn't actually mean that you're dying. You can just let that happen. And once there's a level of control, then I'll start to introduce risk levels. Does that?
Yeah.
Is that what you were asking?
100%. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because it's always been a question that I've had, and I've spoken about it like with my brother and other people that I train with, in terms of just like, as soon as we begin trying to train in a more realistic way, I guess is a simple way to say it, it's like fucking people just start getting hurt quick, you know? Like you start getting hit a lot more, you're getting cut up, the chaos ensues, you know? So then it's like, all right, let's wind it back, slow it down, refine what we're doing, speed it up until there's a point, I guess, with a partner where that you have enough trust that one another, it's like, if I move quickly, you're going to be able to deal with it, vice versa. You've built that over a session. But yeah, it's just always been interesting to me of thinking, yeah, how do you try and bring more reality into your training whilst, you know, it's not a real environment.
That's a different, interesting perspective you just brought there. That's another thing that we've been playing with. So Aikido has brought something really interesting to my life that I never expected it would. Eye contact. So as I said, I'm quite an intense person. And when I look someone in the eye, I really look at you.
You're looking.
I'm like, I see you. Yeah. And like, you see everything that's going on here. And when I talk to you in a normal sense, there might not be a lot of emotions. And you might see a couple of thoughts that come by. But in Aikido, when you look at someone and you're doing those strikes, that was really uncomfortable at first. Holy hell. I remember Sensei, he was doing this knife attack and he's just launching into me, and I started laughing because I was just so uncomfortable. And what I've learned to do in the self-defense is bring that aspect as well, because that's intense. Having someone look you in the eye and attacking you is intense. Oh man. And I've learned to play that role really well, where I'm the aggressor, or we do a role play where you've looked at my wife a certain way, you've been texting her, and I get upset and I start launching into you. Like, what do you do? It's a bit wanky, I will admit, but it works.
I think you got to try it out.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, what do you do when someone yells at you? When someone gets in your face? Like, if you don't prepare for that, then you have no idea.
I think people, and I'm actually glad you brought this up because, and I will mention his name. His name's Scott, by the way, my brother who I keep referencing. And yeah, one of the things that he spoke about, and one of the things that he's seen is, and I've seen it as well, it's this idea that you, especially coming from untrained people, it's the idea that if I turn up the intensity and I turn up the anger and I turn up the speed and I turn up the power, that everything I do is going to be 10 times fucking better.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I take what I am now, but I get pissed off, you look out. And then in actual fact, when you put most people under the test, it's like, if you haven't trained dialing up the intensity or the power or the speed, then a lot of the technique and a lot of it falls apart. The accuracy, all of it falls to shit a lot of the times. I don't know if you've found the same thing. It's just what I've found.
Well, do you know what I would do in a fight situation?
What's that?
I would jump, I would do a knee bar, but no. What I would do is I would first and foremost try and not fight, as in just diffuse, because I don't actually want to fight. A part of me goes like, yeah, let's test myself. I'm like, I'm going to hurt people or they're going to hurt me. I don't want either.
It's not a good outcome.
It's not a good outcome for anyone.
Yeah.
And number two, if I can get something between us, great. If I can get a table between you and me so you can't launch at me so I've got time to respond, great. Those are my first two actions. Other than that, just don't get to the floor. And the most important thing about self-defense is knowing that you can.
Knowing that you can.
Knowing that you can. Because people know. Whether they realize that they do or they don't, that doesn't really matter. People know that you can fight. Because especially as a, martial arts manager, owner, whatever, when a father comes in with his kids, he's like, who are you? You're the manager of this establishment. Can I trust you? And they look you into the eye.
Staring into his fucking soul.
They stare into my soul, go, can I trust you? Are my kids safe here?
Mm.
And if in that moment I'm calm, look you in the eye and go, you're okay. They go, oh, okay, great, cool. I can relax now because now the responsibility of the well-being of my kids, I can project onto you. Because being a parent is freaking hard. Because you constantly have to look after these blobs of meat that can die at any moment or get hurt or get lost or get sick or have issues with friends and whatever. And just having that one person where you go, you can fight. When there's a stress situation, you can slow things down and have control and actually have control of your emotions. People go, oh, great.
Mm.
You look trustworthy. So I'm not even doing martial arts. I can smash people. I love it during jiu-jitsu when I do it to them and they do it to me. But the real reason why I do self-defense is it allows me to walk into any situation and be comfortable and be relaxed. So yeah, no, I'm not going to talk to people about how you can smash one another. Just learn and relax. Look someone in the eye. Just learn to not fight.
Yeah.
Because every time, the laws of thermodynamics, action, reaction, the harder you react, the harder they're going to act. The harder you act, the harder they're going to react. And what's going to happen? You're going to butt heads.
Force meets force.
Force meets force. And if you break them, that will come back to you. Either you're going to feel crap about yourself if you're a normal human being, and if you're a sociopath, then the police is going to come after you. Your pick, but you don't want any.
Yeah, there's a lot of consequences, and 99% of the time, those consequences don't seem good.
No, you will end up on some Facebook group. Oh, this asshole did this to me, and we're all going to boycott him. And
it's interesting what you said before, and one of those parts was control or self-control.
Yeah.
And that speaks to me because the people that I guess scare me, or the people that scare most people, or you don't want to be around them, but it's the people that seem like they have zero self-control. Like, I'm here for loose cannons. I love people who are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I love intense people. I like having that energy around. But on the flip side, having a really intense, potentially has the capacity to do a lot of damage kind of person, if they don't have self-control, they're like I do not want to have those people around me because like you don't know what they're capable.
And you feel it.
Fucking oath you feel it.
Yeah.
It makes my hair stand up. It's like, man, get away from me. You're a liability.
Yeah.
Do you think martial arts trains that out of men?
I think that inability to control yourself has everything to do with fear.
Fear.
Yeah. Pyramid of Maslow. Once again, hierarchy. We are always concerned with our well-being first, beyond anything. It's sex, food, and then appreciation, and then in the end is self-realization. And if we're fearful and we try to make ourselves feel good by really like amping up, that's why when I see a guy that's bulking up and has big muscles and flexes his abs, I'm like, you're pathetic. Yeah. I am not worried about you at all. I'm worried about the guy that doesn't say anything, that just does his own thing. I'm like, you are one I have to worry about. Like when I hit you, you're going to be ready. Like the more you seem strong, the weaker you actually are.
Yeah. Do you think that that's always the case?
It is, because you can go internally, you can go externally. And in martial arts, the beautiful thing about Kyokushin karate versus other karates is they have to spar 40 rounds. And they have to do 6 to 9 hours of grading. So they get absolutely smashed to the point where when they're done, they realize, wow, I'm actually capable. So now internally, they realize they're capable, so that they don't have to do it externally anymore. High-level martial artists have pushed themselves to such a high degree of stress that they don't need external validation anymore. They feel, they sense. I've had a near-death experience on the mats where I was doing a jiu-jitsu competition and someone tried to armbar me, kick me in the head, and I fell backwards. Body was completely paralyzed, and I felt being lifted out of my body. And the reason why that stuck with me and that's made me partially into who I am, because afterwards I got up and I could slowly start to move my body, I continued. I had two more rounds, and people were like, do you want to continue? I'm like, yeah. And in that moment, it's like, yeah, I know that I can handle a few things. Because every time you talk about yourself a certain way, the berserker thing, you need to back it up. And the degree to which I can back it up is the degree to which that you trust that I can. If I don't believe it, nobody will. And having that person walk over that just has that vibe like, oh, I don't know what you're going to do. They're not certain. They don't have balance. There is no foundation there. When you push them, they immediately respond like a cat being forced into a corner.
Yeah.
A cat forced into a corner, get away. Because, either they're going to die or they're going to hurt you. So, yeah, does it answer?
100%. Answers it well. When it comes to you and martial arts as a whole, and when it comes to your belief system in yourself, and I guess it's just your physicality, have you built the belief in yourself from the experiences that you've had, or do you feel like you've had to have a belief in yourself in order to have those experiences? Like, what's chicken or the egg situation? Which one comes first for you in life?
Well, the chicken and the egg, that's an interesting one. It's definitely the egg.
You've heard it here first, people.
Yeah, it's the egg. That's the answer.
Stop thinking about it.
Done. Well, the chicken and the egg, I can get into that really briefly. Like, evolution is a thing that we've seen that over and over again. And animals slowly morph into a different species. The eggs comes first. Now, when it comes to beliefs and whatnot, we always make predictions. We've got our nervous system, and our nervous system tries to make sense of the world. And when we go into martial arts first, we have a prediction this is going to help us. And over time, the predictions that you make in martial arts are going to lead you into every other part of your life. The reason why I started martial arts in the first place, I did judo because my parents made me, and I hated it. But I got back into it. Why did I get back into it? Because it was a release, because it made me feel better. But because I had such a positive experience with martial arts afterwards, with just being calm and relaxed, it started leading into other things. So to answer your question more directly, the belief is very basic at first. It's just, I do something and I get more out of it. And then over time, through your experience and how it affects everything else, your belief starts to grow. I suppose that's the best way to answer that.
Just develops over time.
Yeah.
I heard it on a podcast the other day. I can't remember which one, but I heard someone say that people get their belief not from the things that they achieve, but from the traumas, not necessarily the traumas, but the shit things that happen to them that doesn't kill them. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, that kind of idea.
Yeah.
Like, where the confidence really comes from, it's not knowing that you can achieve X, Y, Z. It's knowing that you can withstand the storm, that you can hold on and you can stay afloat when shit's going really bad. It's like knowing that I won't die first gives me all this space on the life side to be able to experiment, as opposed to not having that confidence that you can weather the storm, but still aiming at just simply being able to achieve some good things.
Ooh, this is, let's go into it this way. So, there's an algorithm that plays in the nervous system. It's called the Bayesian inference model. And what it does, it works with priors, posteriors, and future predictions. And essentially what it does, whenever I'm in a situation, I go like, okay, I've never been here before, so I have no prediction. So now the chance of something happening that I didn't expect is really high. That causes stress. I can go, this is currently how I'm feeling. I feel I've got energy. I feel like my body is quite relaxed. I've got the right emotions. So now my prediction is going to be semi-okay. But let's say I've been to a location before, and all of a sudden, in that location, I've been attacked before. I'm not so relaxed anymore. Now, why do I say this right now? Emotions are a really powerful way to alter your predictions. So the reason why people that have PTSD is because of the emotion. And the reason why psychedelics are so potent at helping people dealing with trauma is they can remove the emotion. So if I can, let's say I give you the freak out of your life right now. I give you an existential crisis, and afterwards we slow it down, you feel comfortable again. That you'll remember for the rest of your life, which is why psychedelics are so potent.
For sure.
because you feel like you're losing track of life. You're like, oh my God, I'm dying. What if I stay in this forever? And then you come back, you go, oh my God, I'm alive. I'm actually okay.
The best feeling in the world.
Yeah. So emotions are just a really powerful way to reinforce certain things. And that's why the narrative that you explain is everything. There was a video of this boy. That's a beautiful example. It was a boy that was a Syrian refugee and had to get across the ocean to get there. And normally when people see such a boy, they go, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you hurt? Oh man, you've gone through such a rough experience. Instead, what these people did, they went, oh, you're a superhero. Look at you. You've made it. And this boy went from, he started smiling and he was happy because it's all about the narrative.
Mm.
And so with martial arts, that's why at the end, I always finish on I don't like the word positive because it's very bland. I like to allow people to digest, to go, that was hard, that was scary, but man, I'm happy that I did it. Versus they walk away going, I've got so many feelings I haven't properly expressed.
Yeah, because if you walk away with that, you might never go back. Hey,
You will
for
never
a lot
go
of people,
back.
it's just like, fuck that.
Which is why, as a leader, you always have to close things off properly. I spent a few years in the army, and it was the same thing. Whenever we came back from being in the field for a week, and we had these crazy experiences, they would murder us through boot camp or speed march, and then afterwards, we get to clean everything up. We have a nice meal. We get to do a debriefing, and you get to, because then next time you go into that experience, you go, right, I'm gonna finish right. I'll be okay after this. With martial arts, if I beat the crap out of you and afterwards you get to sit down and relax and talk to me, you go, I'm actually okay with being beaten up. I'll be fine.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Can get back into it.
I can get back into it.
Were you in the army in the Netherlands or in
Yeah.
Australia? In the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Did you like being in the army?
Well, it was hard. I was with the Marines for 3 years. And
How old were you in these 3 years? Roughly.
Let's see. I left high school when I was 16. I did 2 years of mechatronics, which is terrible because I'm not technical at all. And I think from 18 till 21. Yeah, they trained me to be a sergeant, and it was rough.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was rough because our sergeant and corporal were horrible. They were great people, but they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew how to push our buttons. They knew how to freak us out. And every time you're doing right, they just throw something into the mix. Yeah,
Just to destabilize you.
to destabilize
Yeah.
you and to laugh at you. Yeah, that was.
Don't get too confident.
Don't get too confident. That's it.
Do you think it's a beneficial way of getting trained? Like the way that they train people and push people?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Look, I'm happy that I got out when I got out because I still retained a lot of who I was, and some of my friends stayed.
Do you think that who you are can be taken away
Um,
in that environment?
Look, I'll be honest. What the army does is they break you down and build you up the way they want you to be built up.
Yeah.
Because you're a tool.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's great. There's nothing wrong with being a tool. I'm a tool. I'm a tool to Eltham Martial Arts Academy. I'm the manager. I've got roles to play. If you don't allow yourself to be used by people or by something above you, you float forever. Because, being a tool gives you meaning. Join the army. They break you down, they stress you out so much, and they slowly instill those lessons. And one lesson that they instilled, it's not about you, it's about the group.
Mm.
Like I remember we did a speed march, which is you put a backpack on, like 15 kilos, and sergeant goes in front, and you just follow him. And you don't know how far you're going for. And we were all fucked because we barely slept. We were all disgusting. We hadn't showered in a week, and our food was crap. And you just wanted to be over with. So we'd follow our sergeant, and people would be left behind. And what you do, the front person goes to the back, grabs the person in the back and pushes them forward, which meant that person is now freaking tired. So the other person in the front goes to the back and pulls him forward. And you realize it's not about you, it's about us. If I fail, everyone fails. And you become this unit. I'll tell you, this is also, I've got a few good stories, I think. You'll like this one. We were at a rendezvous. Rendezvous is you've just been attacked, something happened, you go to a place that's preordained with your team, and you can connect with your sergeant, the corporal in our case, at a later stage. And I think it was 2 a.m. It was winter. It was snowing. We hadn't slept for God knows how long, and we're just sitting there waiting. And we were so cold that we started hallucinating. There was a guy that saw a Chinese dragon come through the forest. I saw a Chinese-looking guy in his bathers, like with a ducky around him, and we just started hugging each other, trying to keep each other warm. And like nowadays, people's like, "Oh, no homo, no homo." Like, what do you mean no homo? We need each other.
Got to stay alive.
You got to stay alive, and it's just there was complete transparency between the group. It was amazing that they were my brothers. We needed each other. That's what they instilled in us.
It's one of those other times, right, where that connection, that type of connection, is so rare in day-to-day life. So when you're put in an intense environment like that, where you're forced to connect, I can see how there's something special about that.
Yeah, and it's. I think it does make you a better person. Like there is definitely negative sides to the army. You know, drugs and rape are definitely a part of the army, and you might lose touch with certain human aspects. It took me a year to 2 years to relax in a social space.
Really?
The thing that I kept doing is I kept looking where the exits were. I kept looking at people's faces and looking if they were carrying anything. Because I was just so used to it. Whenever I was put in a situation, you need to be switched on and knowing what's going on. And
yeah, how do you turn that off when you're trying to have a coffee?
Yeah, it wasn't that easy. No, it was a great experience. We did it through something called VEVA. So some guys would go to the Marines, and some guys would go to different parts of the army. Some guys would become mechanics. It was I would recommend any guy to do this. Any guy, between the age of 16 and 20, 21. Because those are the years where you sort of figure out how you work to a degree, how your family works, and how you're thrown out into the wide world and you're trying to make sense of things. And having that basis, it makes you less entitled. Yeah.
Beats it out of you a little bit.
Oh, yeah. They'll do that.
Yeah, I've always wondered with I've obviously never been through army training, so I don't know what it's like. So I wonder. And I've always wondered whether it's beneficial to go through that sort of mind shaping, depending on who you are, right? Because it affects everybody differently. But being in a position where you are being shaped to a degree to become the right sort of tool to create the right action. I've always wondered whether that's a good thing or whether that, I don't know, has the potential for some people to take away, I guess, that autonomy, like that part of you that has agency or can take control of your own life as opposed to take orders from somebody else. Once again, I don't know. I've always just wondered if that happens. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I have no idea. It seems like you have control of your life, so it doesn't happen to you.
I think it depends. I think it depends on how long you do it for. So with me, the 3 years were enough to instill a couple of very important lessons, but I still had enough time afterwards to, formulate my own perception. Because afterwards I did sports science, I traveled the world. So I had that component of the army, but I also had the component of, having my own autonomy. One thing that the army teaches you really well is to surrender. Like this didn't happen to us, but I heard this happened to a different cohort. They had to clean their room meticulously, like to ridiculous standards. And apparently that day, that group was just screwed because the sergeant went in and reached with his hand into the toilet and just grabbed the turd. It's like, no, it's not clean. Do it again, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because, that turd was all the way in the back. They cleaned. They did a great job. And in a moment, what the sergeant said is, you just got attacked. You just have to deal with it. You don't like it. We don't care. Go. And being able to do that, being able to surrender in that moment and just accept, I'm not the boss. This is what's being told. I'm just going to do as I'm told, allows you to really prosper in life. Because with my coaches and my senseis, when they tell me something and I don't like it, tough luck. He says it, you do it. Now we've got this saying, us, in martial art, and it means two things. But the main thing that it means is never give up. if I'm tired, if I'm frustrated, and you've just made me look like a fool in front of everyone, which I do sometimes, you say, you just do it. Go. Don't complain. Go.
Just deal with it. Keep moving.
Deal with it. Keep moving. And because, if you're constantly feeling so sorry for yourself, if you constantly you're concerned with your own thoughts, man, life becomes hard.
Yeah, man, I've definitely been caught up sometimes between the two ideas, and maybe they're not opposing things. Once again, it could be on the same spectrum anyway. But the idea of sometimes in life, I think it's good to be able to recognize when you're in a shitty situation and you do need to make change and take some action. But on the flip side, most of the time, I've wasted so much energy in a situation, just mentally resisting a situation that I shouldn't even need to get out of, like I just don't like the way it is, and I'm mentally resisting it.
Yeah.
And creating all of this difficulty for myself for no real reason. And like trying to know the difference between when is it time to surrender to the experience and when is it time to like, nah, fuck this. Like, it's time to take action and change the situation, Like, how do you discern between those environments? Is that a trained, learned thing, or you just work it out on the spot?
I'll leeway this into something else that might make a bit more sense. So I think we as a society have a disease, and that disease is we need to label everything.
Okay.
I'm a man, you're a woman, and no, I feel this way, so I need to be a woman, or I am beautiful, or I'm strong, or I'm fit. Look, my nickname is Bear at the dojo, and I feel that, but whenever someone says it to me, I just go, and I say berserker, but whenever anyone ever calls me that, I go, because I'm not anything. Whenever you label yourself as something, there's all these predictions of what you're supposed to be. I'm not anything. I just am. Like right now, I might be fired up and able to do this and that. In 10 years, I might be able to go here. And neither are wrong or right. They just are. So if you're so focused on a label, I used to call myself a martial artist. I'm like, I'm not a martial artist. I just am. I'm just expressing who I am in this very moment. And that's going to switch tomorrow, in an hour from now. And I think that's the mind. The mind goes, oh yeah, no, but Dylan, you were supposed to be this. Or you're supposed to be that. And it's not working. Now who are you now? You just are. And when people hear that, they go, oh yeah, whatever. No, like seriously, you just are.
You're right. Yeah, it's a helpful part of the human condition to be able to label things. Sometimes we need tools, and it's a quick way. But in terms of that is also a barrier to life in so many ways. Eventually, all you are is looking at labels instead of life itself.
Yeah, and I think that's where depression and anxiety also lives. The depression. Jim Carrey said this really well. Jim Carrey had a really good way of expressing it. He said, depression is just you being fed up with your character. Like, I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to be a martial artist anymore, or a health and fitness coach, or an entrepreneur. No, I'm done with that role. And my partner is going through something similar. She's getting a bit older, and she's learning to take things slow. But she's like, who am I? I don't know who I am anymore. Because my partner she's quite a high-level martial artist. She's done heaps of tournaments and competitions. She's done really well for herself. And yeah, her body is complaining. And now she needs to let go of that old label. And that's hard, because that's what society wants. That's how you sell yourself on Instagram.
Yeah. There's an expectation to label yourself, to define yourself.
Yeah.
To show your worth and to show your function, to make it palatable for people.
Yeah.
But yeah, after you're relying on that identity for a long time, if it has to change, the more attached it is, it can be painful.
Yeah, and also coming back to hierarchy. So let's say your belief of yourself, of who you are, is at the very bottom. Everything you've built on top of that is going to crumble as soon as you move that.
Felt that. Felt that before.
I think everyone has, but the fact that you've acknowledged it, that's a big step. The carnivore MD, Paul Saladino. He's a good example. So he used to call himself Carnivore MD, and he started out being a carnivore after being a vegan. And he started selling supplements, these desiccated organs and all. And at some point he was like, it's not just organs. You know, I need to have honey as well. And I need to have oranges, and I need to have bananas. I need to have whatever. So he called himself Paul Saladino. So he had to let a part of himself go.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I used to see myself as strong. Like, yeah, I can lift big weights, but I'm not strong. I just am. Because some days I'm not. Like on Tuesday, I usually have like 4 or 5 naps. Yeah.
The labels, do you think the labels are a limitation in your life now? It's why you've chosen to strip them away or not identify with them?
They were definitely a limitation. They were a great inhibition to my martial arts journey. Because I was so concerned with what other people thought, meaning that I always tried to overpower them. And when I started jiu-jitsu at our dojo, I now don't train at our dojo for that reason anymore. I tried to overpower him, which I think I was an asshole. Like, here you've got this coach that's 20, 30 years older than you and is willing to teach you, and you're trying to smash him. Like, how dare you? How dare you try and smash your coach?
When they're just trying to help you get better.
Yeah, and you know, if anything, make your coach look good, and don't expect anything for it. Look, I will speak nothing but highly of anyone who coaches me. You know, Linus, for example, I will only speak highly of him.
Yeah,
always. And that's my role as a student, because when I'm around him, I have that label. I'm a student in that moment. I know that that's a made up concept of him being the teacher and I'm being the student. In that moment, it helps. That's not who I am. Just in that moment.
It's nice to take that role in that situation to be able to learn.
Yeah, I can take that away at any time.
Yeah.
I can decide, like, no, I'm not the student anymore.
It's your choice, at least.
Yeah. Like right now, you and I have a role as well, which has a function. But when we leave, you're Dylan again, and I'm Willem again. Yeah. And right now, you're the host, and I'm the one that answers questions.
You could take it away.
Yeah. Now I'm asking questions. What do you think? Yeah.
So you've got this. And so I understand it correctly. All the things that you do, is it revolved? The central point is the martial arts academy, and this isn't to try and pin you down on create another label.
I'm not a label, I just said that.
But you've got the martial arts academy, and through this you have the Carry and Connect, you have the functional fitness that you follow. You've got the martial arts of different disciplines that you have there as well. Through this you have recovery, wellness.
Yeah, wellness center.
Man, tell me about this. It looks cool.
Yeah, so that's part of the evidence I've been able to supply a little bit. So I've got a system that I use to live, and it's quite a complex system. And
a system that you use to live.
Yeah, it's
fuck yeah, I love it.
It goes really deep. We can go into that in a second if you want. But at the moment, my partner owns Eltham Martial Arts Academy. I'm the manager, the owner of Functional Fitness Eltham, which is fitness classes for kids, adults, and teens, personal training. Care and Connect organization for men and women. Eltham Wellness Center, which is like a part of Eltham Martial Arts Academy. We have a couple of ice baths. We have a sauna. We have a masseuse. I think that's it at the moment.
Do you enjoy existing in that life, in that setup? Because it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, I do. Because what I live for is connection. So, man, this is gonna go into a different direction entirely.
It's fine.
There is a problem with the mind that the heart doesn't have. The mind can conjure up whatever it wants to conjure up. You can make yourself believe anything you want, but you somehow know that it's not true. I can sit here and tell you anything, but after the conversation, when you walk off, you may have a moment where you go, that didn't quite feel right. I feel like he wasn't being truthful. I feel like he wasn't saying the right things. And then I might say something where you go, whoa, I really felt that. I don't know why. I barely even remember what he said, but there's something that made me go like, that was him right there.
Resonates.
It resonates. I got my heart connection about 5 years ago, which was on San Pedro as well. That's a moment I started to be able to feel. And I have several moments throughout the week, every week, where I go, this is real. This is something that I resonate with deeply. The Care and Connect is one of them. The cleaning up the dojo on Monday and having it be all clean at 12 p.m., be able to provide that space for people is one of them. The Bear Cubs and Bear Club, where I coach neurodivergent kids, not neurodivergent, normal kids, because I don't label. Those are moments where I'm like, this is real. This is something that I deeply appreciate. And I coach a couple of kids in personal training. And recently I had one boy that was able to lift a 23-kilo ball to his shoulder, and took him about a year to get there. That is so real to me. I get such joy from that. It's hard to describe how happy that makes me, because I realize I'm able to give this to him. I'm able to give him the greatest lesson of life, where you can work towards things. Don't say I can or I cannot. I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. So am I happy with my life? Yeah. It's hard. It's breaking me down left, right, but it's real. It's something I can carry. And I'm going to lose everything anyway, so I might as well.
May as well live it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to, you've mentioned your emotions and the lack. You've mentioned the way that emotions play a role in your life, and to tie in what we were talking about earlier, it seems that the more that you have control over them, or you can limit them in some occasions, it gives you a clear mental clarity to understand what the fuck's going on. But for you,
post ejaculation clarity.
That's it. Yeah, once it wears off and you're like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah.
What have I done? That being said, for you, where do emotions play, or how do emotions play a role in your life? Like where do you get benefit from them? Do they happen to you? Do you create them?
Oh yeah, I definitely feel emotions. Look,
do you see the relevance of them?
I understand that emotions are conjured up by myself. I understand that my beliefs create my emotions. My perception and predictions create my emotions. If I expect something to be great and it's not great, my emotions are generally negative. If I expect something to be shit and it's great, I feel positive. But what I desire most deeply is to have true connection. Like the reason why I'm alive is to play, to adhere beauty, and to go through hardship, to pain, to really feel that. Like crying is something I enjoy, because when you cry, you just cry. And if I relate to someone, I can truly feel that I've related to this person, I've listened to them, and I was involved with them, and we move forward. Then I've now utilized emotion to feel something that makes me want to be alive. Like when I have a conversation with you, I don't have any ulterior motives here other than just having a nice conversation. Like, yeah, if this turns into something, if someone goes, oh, that's cool, great. I don't really care. So
I agree with that. I feel the same.
You know, we human beings are always thinking about the destination, about the arrow of time, the Newtonian way of doing things. I'm like, life is here, right now. And if I can have a deeper connection with the person in front of me and share and flow and be involved and be present, then done. Then emotions have served their purpose. I hope that gets across a few things.
It definitely does get it across.
I do feel like I sound very cliche though.
Why's that?
You know, everyone always says these things to sound inspirational.
I mean, I once again, we only have a set number of words, and we try and arrange them in different ways to make more sense of these unspeakable topics a lot of the time. And a lot of them are like platitudes, I guess, or cliche. A lot of the good stuff is cliched out because it's been referenced so much, you know, it's the most important things to look at. But I really like trying to get, and in your case, listening to you, just trying to get specific, you know? And so, yes, it does have relevance and it does have meaning to me, and it's not cliched because all of these topics for me are so beautiful and so important, and I personally just want to understand them. And one of the ways that I can understand it is through hearing somebody else's experience, if not my own.
Relating to it.
And trying to relate to it. And it blows my mind how other people get to conclusions that they get to, you know, like how other people start answering their own questions about their own life and their existence and humanity as a whole and the society that we live in, how people come to those answers. Back in the day, I thought my way was the only way at one point. You know, I was like, I've just worked a few things out. I've seen the light. I've had the light bulb moment. I know how things are done. and I know the right way to think about things. And then you talk to more people and it's like, fuck, there's another road to the center and there's another road and there's more and more and more. So hearing the way that you compute things and your system, your philosophy on life is something that I want to try and understand selfishly, you know?
We can go into it a little bit. So, for those of you that don't know what a system is very specific. This is from systems theory.
So systems theory is an actual thing.
Systems theory is an actual thing. It's a
Okay.
discipline, absolutely. You can look this up and there's a lot to be said about it. Systems are a way for you to make sense of things, but it's also who we are as a person. But it's also a business, it's also a system. You know, the world is also a system. Solar system, obviously a system. Galaxy system. And once you understand how a system functions, its ways, its cycles, you can sort of start to predict things. And that makes that your life becomes much more efficient. But here is something that I haven't mentioned. You know, I said to you that I was fearful when I had that matrix moment.
Yeah.
I now have people in my life that go the other way. So my partner is on the flip side of things. I am very general and very theoretical. My mind just puts things together, left, right, and center. And she is here. Her emotions are very much here. So she sometimes pulls me aside and go, hey, I know you've got a grasp of A, B, and C, but have you thought about A1 and B2 and C4? I'm like, oh, shit. Okay, I've gone too fast. But as a man, I think our mind are levied towards systems way of thinking. Because what a system is metabolism, structure, and information. Always, those three.
Metabolism, structure, and information.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, now it's going to get interesting.
Okay.
Structure is masculine. Metabolism is feminine. And information, I've got two words for it. I still have to work that out a little bit, but I call it the child energy or the seed.
Okay. Yeah.
And in the body, for example, if you look at, say, the hands, the jaw, and the feet, these are the three areas that the body utilizes to create tension. So if I'm standing and I start to turn my hand like that, my whole body opens up. If I do this, my whole body closes. If I clench my jaw really hard, my whole body comes forward. If I open my mouth, it goes back. With the feet, if I go to the front of the foot, I start to activate the back of my legs. If I go towards my heel, activate the front. If I rotate, my body opens up. If I rotate the other way, my body closes down. These three are: the feet are structure, the hands are metabolism, and the jaw is information.
Okay.
And you see this in everything. And like in a business, for example, you've got the metabolism. Those are the people. The information is the things that are learned, and structure is the way you do things. You know, in Australia, it's the same thing. Information might be what your product that you're sending out. Metabolism might be the people, and the structure might be the ways Australians are supposed to behave. You see it everywhere. The nervous system is the same way. The cardiovascular system is the same way. Respiratory system.
All systems have these properties.
All of them. And I've got about 13 principles. Like you've got canalization, you've got critical mass, you've got vortex, you've got singularity, you've got hierarchy, you've got evolution. All systems work according to those ways. And it is mind-boggling once you see the connections. You start to understand why things work the way they do. And then you pull emotion out of it. It's wild, actually. There are moments where I don't even believe myself when I say it.
So if you can you pull things out of it, or a system has to have all of these parts present at all times?
Well, if you think about what life is essentially, life is organization.
Yeah. And
life has had a few billion years to try and figure this out. And I would almost call this the source code of our reality. I'm going really far here.
That's
I understand that people think I'm insane. You're welcome to.
No. Let's unpack it.
But I believe that there is a sort of an HTML written for the reality that we have nowadays. And if you understand that HTML, that source code, you can start to make stronger predictions. Because the better your predictions are, the better your life becomes. Because every time I make an incorrect prediction, you create a semantic error.
Yeah.
So let's say you and I are doing sparring, we're doing kickboxing. So your prediction goes, okay, we're doing kickboxing. So he can punch, he can kick. I can get struck in the face. But let's say all of a sudden I do a takedown. Now your prediction doesn't line up with what's actually happening. That's what they call a somatic error. That somatic error causes anxiety, uncertainty, and stress. But this is fine. You can level this. You can just go, oh, okay, shit. Boop. He's going to the floor. I'm going to respond this and this way. If the somatic error becomes bigger, people say that the Earth is flat. I don't agree with that at all. But let's say there is fundamental proof that the Earth is flat.
Okay.
We get this huge somatic error. We go, oh, what does that mean? Or if you talk about 9/11, if you talk about COVID, what that means. If your perception was all the way at the bottom of your hierarchy, then you get a massive somatic error. But then if you start to understand how life functions, it's a lot easier to forgo these somatic errors. They don't affect you as much anymore. Because with me, if I feel death encroaching, like I'd be fasting or someone chokes me out and I pass out, it doesn't worry me as much anymore because, I believe that I won't die after life.
It continues.
It continues.
Yeah.
I actually had a past life experience.
Did you?
Yeah, on San Pedro.
Was it a good one?
It was a bit weird.
What was the past life?
A French soldier from the Battle of Waterloo.
Whoa.
Yeah. I do sound insane, don't I?
Not at all.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we have a men's circle and we try to do it a couple of times a year. And this is on San Pedro. I don't know why San Pedro keeps popping up.
How many times have you done San Pedro?
I think 6 times, 5 times.
Nice.
I do San Pedro a couple of times a year, magic mushrooms a couple of times a year. That's about it. I try to go for natural only.
Go for the plants.
Go for the plants.
Yeah.
I grow San Pedro myself because I think it's important to have that connection. No, we're at a men's circle that I host with a friend of mine, and we do a ceremony. We took the sacrament, which is San Pedro, brew that I make, and at the height of it, I was taken over by this entity that spoke through me. It's in a French accent, which is what the guys later told me. It said, "Don't look back. You can look back when you're dead." And the freaky thing was, when that happened, I spoke in a French accent. My posture was different. My facial expressions were different. I saw all these visuals. I saw a green field and a mount. I saw a flag. It was red with a cross through it. I saw people with these red suits with a white cross here, a long black head. When that passed, I saw humans and saber-toothed tigers. And yeah, they confirmed everything. And I just went, you know what? I was just insane. This is just psychedelics. This is just hallucinating. But then I looked it up, and this was the Battle of Waterloo, 1806. I think it was 1806. Yeah. So this was a past life that spoke through me of that time.
So once you went through it, you weren't 100% sure, and then you kind of look into it, you put the pieces together.
I had a huge somatic error because I was just shown like, hey, life doesn't end after death.
So prior to that moment, what did you believe?
I believe I would just die and that's it.
Nothingness.
My mom is a Roman Catholic and I hated religion. I was atheistic. I was completely atheistic. No, that took me a year to fully accept that experience. That was hard because I had to let go of my anxieties, of my fears. I had to understand everything I was worried about doesn't have to be worried about. I didn't want to have a bar of it.
So were you worried about dying prior to this moment?
Oh, yeah.
Was the thought of death looming on you at this point in life? Because I know it doesn't always get us that young. It creeps up on us.
I don't worry about it anymore because of that near-death experience on the jiu-jitsu mats and then that experience. But that took a really long time. Yeah, and the other thing, the saber-toothed tiger, I went, that's ridiculous. Saber-toothed tigers weren't alive when humans were alive. What are you talking about? So that's just hallucinations. And I looked it up like, oh no, hold on.
They definitely were, yeah.
Shit. Okay. So there might be some truth to this.
Would you like to, if you could click your fingers and you could get full access to all your past lives, would you want that?
No.
Would you want to know?
No.
Why's that?
It depends on what you believe, but I believe, and this is verified by many religions, that after life we go to a realm, and in that realm we get to see what happened, and then we can go to a next realm. And you're put on this earth to live your life, to learn lessons, and to go through that experience. And that's the beauty of it. It is like a game. Like I've been put on this earth to show unconditional love. I'm a stepfather right now, and I do have a desire to have kids, but I have a partner that can't have kids. And now I'm being taught to show unconditional love to these 3 kids, which is hard. But once I figure that out, everything else becomes a lot easier. And if I know about all my past lives, then there's no game aspect anymore. It's like I'm starting Skyrim with everything level 100. All the quests are done.
That's actually a good point, hey, because one of the beautiful parts about not knowing is it's the not knowing of what's going to happen fully, or what happened in the past, that you get dropped in here again. You think you're fresh, and then throughout a lifetime you're like, wait, start working a few more things out.
Yeah.
Do you think that the idea is that whatever it is, your source, your soul, whether it's an individual soul or whether it's a part of the soul,
I think it's both.
The central thing? I think it's both. It's the drop in an ocean in a drop kind of situation. Do you think that the idea is you get dropped down here and you're here to learn these lessons, like you said, and in terms of us speaking about it earlier, this frequency that we call consciousness, and the further we can raise it, the kind of cooler things get, the more enlightened we become. Do you think that in terms of that game, you're just raising, whether it takes 1 lifetime or 1,000 lifetimes or whatever, you're just raising your consciousness through each lifetime until at some point it's like, cool, you've had your time here.
Yeah, you've done it. So you've now achieved it.
Level Earth unlocked. Cool.
Well, there's something fundamental about systems, and that is, the closer you get to an answer, the further away you are from it. So, if I were to, that's
is that because your knowledge has expanded, or like the ceiling has raised?
If I were to have a conversation with someone about a very interesting topic, a very difficult topic, and they've got the exact wrong answer, that tells me that they're really close.
The exact wrong answer.
The exact wrong answer. We as a humanity at the moment are going through a seismic shift. Because based on what we've discovered so far, the Homo erectus has been alive for 300,000 years, and the 299,000 years we've lived in caves, essentially 298,000. And then we invented fire, we invented wheels, then we invented agriculture, and then we went from agriculture into industrial revolution and computer evolution. Now we've got AI, and you see us speeding up. And the main difference between what happened back then and what happened now is it's much more intense. Because, the polarity is so much higher. That's another quantum principle that I often utilize, polarity. Like the good and evil people talk about, or people having, how much does Elon Musk have at the moment? Like,
I think he just cracked 400 billion.
400 billion?
Allegedly, whatever
and
that means.
People might make like $1 a day.
Yeah.
That's what happens when a species gets close to that singularity, because essentially first we were here, then we're here, and then we're here, and all of a sudden we go here. So when someone is really close, like I can tell I'm much more aware of my mind. So my mind makes a lot more noise nowadays, because it's like, oh, you're not going to get me. You're not going to grab me. I'm like, I am. You better run away. Whereas if someone is not aware of their mind can just do whatever.
Yeah.
It's like with kids. Kids start to make noise. When they can tell they're being controlled, and if someone has control of them, they're going to test the living shit out of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as you get closer, you're like, things get worse.
I like that analogy as you were drawing the wave, as the wave expanding, the shift between
canalization.
Yeah,
that's canalization.
Okay, so yeah, the shift between the positive, the negative, however we want to look at the each poles of whatever situation. Yeah, that's getting more extreme. It's getting more violent right before impact point.
Yeah, and you've probably heard this before, where I don't know, you're quite a healthy guy. I can see that
for the most part. Sometimes.
Would you say that when you have something now, like a bit too much alcohol, or I don't know, bread or things you're not supposed to be eating, whatever, that it affects you more than back in the day?
100%.
There you go.
I definitely alcohol's a good one. The more time that I spend not consuming alcohol at all, the way worse the hangover is off like one beer, you know? But if you're drinking every day, it's like one beer does nothing. You feel just as shit as you always did, but you never just...
There you go. That's it.
You never realize how shit you felt. So yeah, in that sense, I totally agree. It's the little bit of poison affects you so much more when you're living a clean life.
Because, you know, I don't want to be too general here, but I see 3 types of way that systems can computate: sentience, consciousness, and self-awareness. And the big difference between sentience, consciousness, and awareness is the speed of computations and the effect that these computations have. So sentience works really fast, but barely has any effect. Consciousness works a little bit slower, but has greater effect. And self-awareness moves really slowly, but has a really powerful effect. Meaning, if you're getting higher in that degree of self-awareness, you do have greater cycles. So when you do take a misstep, there's so much more amplitude, so much more firepower. If I get someone to run and their max speed is 10 kilometers an hour and I take a misstep, their ankle's going to be fine. If you get someone to do 25 kilometers an hour and they take a misstep, their ankle is probably going to snap. That's sort of what I'm getting at.
I've never thought about it like that before.
That's the systems.
Sentience, consciousness, awareness.
Yeah.
And self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Yeah.
This
is stuff that I've made up. Just FYI. This is just what I've seen over time looking at quantum mechanics and systems theory. This is not verified by anyone. This is just my brain.
I'm trying to verify it within myself right now, I guess. It doesn't have to be verified. It's we're having a conversation, trying to learn about one another and unpack the way that we see the world. And if these are the words that we're using to do it, I like it. I'm here for it. You're so right though, because I'm thinking about it's like one of those things that, like, if you've never meditated before, and I've heard this anecdotally from other people as well, not just my own experience, but you've never meditated before, and you know, maybe you decided to start meditating because your mind's a bit crazy and you think maybe it's a good idea. You start meditating and you're like, fuck, it's getting way worse. Like, like my mind's getting way worse right now. I can't, that little bit of awareness that you've gotten has brought you so much more pain because you're suddenly aware of all the bullshit that's going through your head as opposed to being ignorantly bliss.
Yeah,
previously.
This is in the Bible too.
Yeah.
This comes back in the Bible.
Yeah. And I think this is a common theme that's referenced throughout mystics and science and religion combined.
Oh yeah.
And I've struggled with that a lot of trying my best to be on some sort of journey to enlightenment, whatever that means, but to whatever that means, moving towards somewhere. And struggling with that condition of the more aware you are of your situation and your downfalls, and the more that you're trying to clean your act up, so to speak. It's a difficult thing to speak about, but I guess this is the way that I'll try. The more that you try and clean your act up and iron out the creases of your existence, the more, a slight misstep, or you know, a small thing that you normally are so hyper aware. When you step out of line, it's like, fuck, it hurts. It can hit hard, and it can catch you and pull you back if you're not aware. Not you, me.
In the Bible, they say, he who wrestles with God. I think that's what it is. I think that's what you're referring to. You're wrestling with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to be.
Yeah.
You're wrestling with what you have control over. And that's really hard because it's all you. It's always been you.
Yeah, that's that non-dualistic sort of look at things, right? Like we go through life and we always think there's me and it and us and them and
us versus them.
Yeah,
we're the good guys.
I'm on the inside and I'm looking out at everything else, and allegedly, in actual fact, that is not the case. It's there isn't this and the other. There isn't me and it. It's literally the one system, the one thing going on.
There is good news though. So another quantum principle. Critical mass, and this one is fascinating.
I don't understand critical mass. I don't know.
I'll explain.
Don't know what it is.
It's simple. It's really simple. We tend to think in linear ways, Newtonian physics.
Deterministic.
Yeah. Life's not deterministic, but we think of it that way. You know, what Isaac Newton said is, if you know the position and if you know the speed of any particle in a known universe, then we know exactly what's going to happen, what has happened. great thing about quantum mechanics is the less you know about the position, and you know about more you know about the speed. The less you know about the speed, and more you know about position. And the thing with critical mass is you see a linear direction, and this one tiny thing changes, and all of a sudden, or you might do Aikido, and for about half a year you go, what am I even doing here? I know nothing. And all of a sudden you realize you've been doing this one thing all wrong. You've not been looking someone in the eye. You've been way too tense. And all of a sudden you go, I get it now. And then you just shoot up. And that's the thing with sentience and consciousness and self-awareness. You can get close from one to the other. And as you get close, the chaos is going to increase and ensue. And it's almost like life needs to test you. Are you worthy of continuing? And once you've gone to the next step, critical mass.
So it's a tipping point.
It's a tipping point.
Okay.
You know, I've been weightlifting since I was 16. And 3 years ago, I could barely lift 120 kilos. Now I can easily lift 180. And that's just because things came together.
And how much do you weigh?
84.
And you can pick up a 180 kilo bag.
I've looked it up.
Nuts.
British strongest man, 104 kilos. He lifts 170. And I almost didn't believe it, but it's just knowing the right things. With me, I'd almost say it's the jaw training that I've been doing, the footwork. And I was finding myself because I'm like, you can't say that you're stronger than a British strongest man. I'm like, anyone can do this. I'm not saying that I'm special. Anyone can do this because we're all on that same journey. You might be here, I might be here, that person might be here. And once you understand, once you become self-realized and you realize that you have the capacity to change, you can go anywhere you want to go. Because you're the one holding yourself back, and that's fine. But that's your mind, because your mind doesn't want you to, because that feels unsafe.
Yeah.
Critical mass feels really unsafe. That's mushrooms. Do you remember the first time you did mushrooms?
Yeah, I can.
What was that like?
The first time I did mushrooms. I think the first time I did mushrooms, it wasn't I wouldn't call it an enlightening experience. I only had a few. And I think I just went in. I don't know what else I was doing, but what it was when I was young, and I wasn't in any sort of mode about assessing the world in any way, shape, or form. And so in terms of the impact that I get now from psychedelics, I didn't get that, not at all. I think I had a really fucking fun time, and I think I went into the shops and stared at people and thought it was hilarious. and I'm pretty sure that's what I did. But from a standpoint of that experience benefiting my life in some big way, I don't think that did. But I've definitely had others I've found as I get older, the more profound the experiences get.
I concur.
Do you get a lot out of psychedelics?
I actually have the exact same thing that you had. I did truffles back in the Netherlands because they were illegal.
Yeah.
And it was just getting high. We'd just be at my place. Mom, Dad, please don't listen to this. We'd go to my place, we'd get high, put on some nice music, and that's it. And I got nothing profound from it. And now I do psychedelics maybe 4 times a year. And every single time I do it, I get this massive... Like I had a DMT experience a while back, and I felt like I was a fish that was lifted out of the river, seeing time. It was mad. And I think that had to do with that I had a couple of existential crises. Have you had one of those?
An existential crisis?
Yeah, where you...
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah.
I've had one with Jay. Yeah. But tell me more. tell me about yours.
An existential crisis within life itself or within a psychedelic
experience?
So probably one of the most scary... I think this is the most... I haven't had any existential crisis on long-form psychedelic experiences. So like taking LSD, acid, or mushrooms, or mescaline, cactuses, ayahuasca, those things that last a long time. I've never had an existential crisis in that respect. In a real, like, violent, traumatic way. They've been slowly burnt out. But I did have an experience smoking DMT, and it was this kaleidoscopic effect that happened. It was supposed to be a normal experience, as normal as that can be.
Yeah, DMT, bye.
And I think I had music playing on my phone.
Yeah.
And so I took a hit, and then I laid back down, and accidentally turned the music off in this exact moment it was coming on. And my last thought was, oh no, I fucked up. That was my thought.
And that stayed with you.
Oh my God, man. And so suddenly this, oh my God, I fucked up from doing that. As soon as I got shot into space, that, oh my God, I fucked up feeling got reverberated throughout existence. And like the feeling of me fucking up was like I've the biggest possible fuck up you can ever do. I've wrecked everything. I've wrecked my whole entire life. I'm slipping away. I can feel my identity getting taken away. And I was not in a state of like, I'm letting go and I'm going with this. I was like holding on.
I can feel that.
I was holding on for dear life. Like, nah, I'm not ready to go. I'm still working on my personality. Like, don't fucking take it from me now. I can't handle. And I just remember, there was no real specific reason, but the feeling of fear was so great, man. It's the most I've ever felt. And I felt it immediately, and I knew I just had to wear this one, like just make it through this experience. And I just didn't think I was going to make it. I thought it was just the worst possible thing.
I'm gone. This is over. I'm going to be a vegetable.
Yeah. Like I've fucked up. Whatever it is, it's the worst possible thing I've ever experienced. And then I came out of it, and I was like, yes,
I'm alive. I'm back. I can try again.
Yes to life. Like, I'm so glad to have this back. And I was so glad in that moment. So many times, like I've read mystics and I'm trying to meditate and it's like, oh, I want to get rid of my ego and this and that. I was like, in that moment, I was like, give it back to me. Give me my personality.
That's
for the time being.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was, for me, that was actually one of the most, it's funny now, but it was actually like one of the most scary experiences I've ever had. How about you?
The first time I did DMT was incredibly scary because I had a fair bit of experience beforehand. It's just that was all slowly coming on, and DMT was like a whack in the face. Like I was like, I'm not ready. I need like 30 minutes. No, with Jay, I had an experience. He'd given me a certain amount. I can mention his name, can I? He's not going to get into trouble.
I don't know. Just mention his name and I'll ask him afterwards.
Oh, I know his mom's. It was his idea. It was not mine idea. It was his idea. No. So he gave me a certain amount of mushrooms, and at that time, it was maybe a bit too much. And I apparently I said something like "help me," because my complete ego melted. I felt like I was going to psychosis. I was never gonna come back. And when I did come back, I was so smooth and soft, and I felt this real feminine energy. Because I've always been someone that latches on and gets in there, tries to figure things out, lean in, and to be able to just be surrendered. I kind of want to say something out loud, but I'm not sure if I can.
You can always take it out later.
I felt like I was raped by life.
Raped by life?
Yeah, and in that moment, it was, oh man, that sounds really bad.
Doesn't sound bad if that's what you experienced, and that's the way to describe it.
Yeah, it's a true surrendering, especially as a guy, especially martial arts and army and just a tiny little mushroom taking that away from you.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
And one thing I try to do with, you might think like, why do you do so much training? Why do you do this? Like, I want to be a better human being, and that goes really deep for me. Like, I want to have a conversation with someone, and I want to light someone on fire. They go, that was a great conversation. And that mushroom experience softened me. Because even now as we have a conversation, sometimes you're talking and then a thought comes in my head, like, I need to say this. And I go, stop. Just listen. Just let that go. If it's really important, it will come back.
It'll come back, yeah.
And that's the mushroom speaking. Some better will be speak. And the mushroom's like, it's okay. Just shut up.
So you think it had a permanent or long-lasting effect on you?
I think I have like 6 experiences that are permanent. Yeah, I've already talked about a few.
Out of the different psychedelics or plant medicines that you have experienced, what do you personally feel like you get the most benefit out of? If net benefit, I guess.
I'll give you an answer that you probably won't expect. So, system, masculine, feminine. If you look at the system of the world, we go through cycles. We go through feminine and masculine cycles. The winter is feminine, summer is masculine. And what I do is during autumn, I have a good mushroom experience, and that makes me more feminine. That makes me slow down. That makes me sense more, feel more, relate to people more. But it makes me less effective as a person. And then during spring and summer, I take San Pedro, which makes me much more masculine, much more effective. I send out a lot more. I think a lot more. But I'm also a lot more blunt and a lot more rude.
Yeah.
Less concerned with people's feelings. So what do I get the most out of? That really depends on the situation. Because right now I'm very masculine. I know I am. I'm very confrontational. I'm looking people's eyes. And as soon as autumn comes around, I'll dial that back. I'll let go of a couple of friendships. I'll relate deeper to the people around me. I'll engage with my own darkness, my own weakness, my own, the shit that's hasn't been dealt with. So I don't really have an answer there other than it depends.
That's a good answer though. I've never thought about I've always used psychedelics to move into the next chapter of life. That's just for what
that's the right answer.
Yeah, for me that's whatever reason. But I've never heard it said like you just said with a masculine, feminine edge and them having certain different purposes.
Think about it. Think about what
it makes sense.
Think about what the masculine is. The masculine is hard, dry.
It's direct. It's like directive,
direct, strong.
Yeah.
And then you've got the feminine that's soft, smooth, cold, wet. Think about how mushrooms thrive. Think about
they're definitely smooth and cold and wet.
Yeah, that's it. They're dark. They don't want to be out in the sun. And you got San Pedro that's unkillable.
50 degrees. It's good to go.
This is wild. Actually, it's wild that San Pedro survived this. I'm hosting these men's circles, and I needed to get some San Pedro. So I went on to Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree. I think it was Gumtree at the time. And I went to his place, and he had a whole bunch of San Pedro, and he had some laying in his garage. And he said that they've been laying there for 10 years or something without water, just laying there. And they were still
pieces cut up,
but they were still alive, and they had roots. And I've put them back in the earth, and they came back unkillable. like several years without water, without nutrients. That's insane.
Did you, when the first time you did San Pedro, did you cook it up yourself?
Yeah, no. The first time I did it, I ate it. The first time was in the Netherlands with a friend of mine in the forest.
You just ate the raw version of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could just. It's some of the worst tasting. I found it so difficult to drink. Like when I made it to drink, it was the worst thing I've ever drank.
Lemon is a good thing to do.
Okay.
Lemon, ginger, maybe a bit of cacao. But yeah, that's also what I really like about San Pedro is you have to earn your way through. Like it's
definitely not a fun experience.
It's not fun.
Same with ayahuasca as well. It's not really
ayahuasca's
fun
horrible.
Yeah.
And you know what? With every psychedelic, I feel horrible at the start. With mushrooms, I just get this weird anxiety, and I feel these strange feelings. And I get better at it because I just surrender. I just let go. And then I have the good experience. That's why psychedelics to me they're not addictive. Because I know there's a whole bunch of shit that comes with it. By the way, for anyone listening, anyone that's against psychedelics, and this really sells it for me, it's twofold. Number one, from what we can tell, every animal in the animal kingdom finds a way for alternate states. Squirrels with fermented apples, pumas, they eat the psychedelic leaves from ayahuasca. Dolphins suck on pufferfish. The list goes on and on and on. And number two, and this is systems theory coming in, our nervous system is too good at making predictions. Our Bayesian inference model in our head, that algorithm, is too effective. We encapsulate ourselves. We know these people. My parents are a little bit like that. They're a little bit institutionalized. They've never taken psychedelics. Like their life is their life. And if you venture too far away, they get upset. And sometimes you need to create static. You need to create static to break things down. You need to force your system to readjust. And because both you and I have done that so many times, we're able to let go of things. When someone tells me a wild theory, I go, I've been wrong before. Tell me. Tell me. How wild can it? But back it up. Explain it to me. Explain it in a way that I can understand it. But at face value, if you say 9/11 is not real, okay, tell me. If you think that the moon landing is not real, tell me. How can you back it up? If you say that the Earth is flat, I had a friend that said that. I'm like, okay, back it up. Go for it.
It definitely opens you up to the possibility of, I don't know, once you've been put in a few different altered states, it's like, man, a lot more things become possible. And I fully appreciate the people who haven't done them before be like, what the fuck? Like you're just hallucinating and you're misinterpreting the reality that's actually there. But I don't know, for me personally, the more time I've experienced in different psychedelic states and the things that I've gotten, real world things that I've gotten out of it, and the things that I have seen and experienced, I mean, it definitely opens you up to the possibility of a greater world, of a wider world, and definitely a more complex existence.
Well, if you talk to conventional people, let's just call them that at the moment, what's really tangible is when someone takes psychedelics, they actually improve. We have data to suggest that people 6 months after one doses of psychedelics, mushrooms, has improvement in PTSD, in trauma, in emotional well-being, regulation. And yes, I've taken a lot of psychedelics in my life. Am I functional at the moment? Yeah. I feel like I'm paying my way. I'm adding something to society. So every now or then just getting high and reconsider everything, it's helped me. With you, if I look at you, you seem like someone that can flow, that can feel, that can sense, that has a deeper understanding of what life is.
Try.
So no, I can see it with you. So if someone goes, why would you take psychedelics? Like, look at people that have taken psychedelics. Are there people that are worthy of respect? Might that have something to do with psychedelics? Probably.
For sure, yeah. Definitely don't look at the advertisements of psychedelics and the effects, that you see on TV. And
but how many people have gotten hurt?
Yeah.
In comparison with cocaine and alcohol and Oxycontin and
100%, man. And it's not without risk. I think that's one of the biggest.
True.
It's one of the biggest arguments against it is like, oh, well, people do get hurt. It's like, yeah, fucking oath they do. Like they're big. They're adult toys. They're adult things to play with.
Not those adult toys, different ones.
These are way fun.
Yeah.
And they do have real world consequences, and they put you in a state where they shake you up and they mix up what you know, and that can get confusing, and it can be very disruptive for you in different ways. And yeah, that can affect people. I definitely think that there's probably some people out there who just maybe they can't do it or maybe they can't handle it, but from my perspective, I'm just the biggest advocate. I think the plants themselves are not the problem. I think the way that people take them often is what results in a terrible experience, which is set and setting and people and all the other things.
Yeah,
dosage.
But I think also, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is coming back to the system. I'm going to come back to that a lot. Systems have functions.
Okay.
Like the government, their function is control. That's what they're supposed to do. You can't get angry at the government for trying to control. You can't. That's just what they do. When you come to a martial arts studio, they want to teach you martial arts. You can't get angry at them for teaching martial arts. Otherwise, you wouldn't go there. So if we look at the world, we live in a capitalistic society. Capitalistic society is there to make money. That's its function. And then when you look at the medical system tries to help people to make money. And if you think about one doses of mushrooms, which grows everywhere, which is free, that can help someone for 6 months, that's going against the objective of a system that's trying to make money. So they're going to try and suppress it. And that's fine. But it's once again pulling away. I can't get angry with the medical system. I can't get angry with supermarkets. I can't get angry with the agricultural system, trying to take control through GMOs and whatnot and trying to make us sick. How can you get angry with that? Because if you know it, do something about it. Stop complaining. Like, yeah, they're now injecting Bovir into cows to make sure they don't, fart as much. I think it's ridiculous.
I've never heard of that.
Oh, that's something that's
to stop methane production.
Yeah, less so
for climate. Yeah,
that's happening right now with Coles and Woolworths, and apparently it's cancer inducing into human beings. I'm like, I'm not angry. You know what? Have some kangaroo then. Or maybe have some bison, or have a bit of duck, or just don't eat for a while. If you know this, then do something about it. Stop complaining.
Yeah.
If you don't like Trump, well then vote for Kamala Harris. And by the way, Trump being in office, if you don't like him, I like the dude. I especially like RFK, like what he's doing. He doesn't have control over me. I mean, sure, he makes some laws here and there, and he's part of a political system, which is part of a governing system, which tries to control. But as long as I control myself, I'm not worried. And that's true responsibility, and that's not nice to look at. Because whatever shit I've gone through is usually created by myself.
How do you constantly try to stay aware of yourself in these situations?
Oh.
Like, how do you, obviously you, with all the things we have talked about in terms of the martial arts and the training, but do you have, and the psychedelics, I guess, as well, but do you have any sort of meditative sort of practices
Absolutely.
that you follow for that
Absolutely.
internal journey?
Yeah, I've got two, and they're really simple. You can do them right now. I walk every day, barefoot, on the grass, usually around 8:30, to digest the day and to think about how I did and what things actually mean, what people have said. And I meditate every day. And I used to do TM, Transcendental Meditation.
Okay,
where you have a mantra. I've done a course on that. And at some point I let go of that. I don't do it anymore. I just close my eyes and I just go away somewhere. And what that allows me to do is for my mind to catch up on all the information I've received. And sometimes I'm super dark, super negative, and sometimes I'm super positive. But those two moments, talking about that system that I utilize to live, usually 3:30 right before I go to the dojo, 20 to 30 minutes, then the walk. And that just allows me to keep track of things. And it's tremendously slowed down my life in a literal sense. Time moves much slower for me now, much slower.
And that's a good thing.
I see more, I sense more.
Yeah.
I see the birds. I pet the dogs. I smell the roses.
How long do you have a specific time frame that you meditate for, or you just feel it out?
Whatever.
Yeah.
When I get that sensation, I want to move again, I move. And sometimes it's 20, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 10.
Yeah.
I just accept it. And the walking, once again, if I need 10 minutes, I'll do 10. If I do 40, I do 40. Doesn't matter.
So talk to me about the barefoot, because I've seen you're definitely an advocate.
Oh, man. Are you ready?
I don't know if I am, but I'm
Oi.
here for it.
All right, here we go.
Talk to me.
So the body needs polarity. I'm going to go deep with this one if I can. The body needs polarity. You see that with muscles contracting, where you need calcium and magnesium. These are opposites to one another. You got the same with sodium and potassium. If you got too much of one, the other one is going to be at risk. And the body needs polarities in order to levy off of one another. And nowadays, because we get exposed to so many non-native electromagnetic fields, like the phone, for example, like 5G, like blue. Yes, I'm one of those. Yes, I'm one of those. We constantly
I'm
get
one of those too.
good.
Just to clarify.
Anyone that has spent a little bit of time thinking about this can already say the fact that we constantly get bombarded with electromagnetic fields can say that's not a good thing.
100%. And I don't want to derail this story because I want to hear it.
Take your time.
But one of the craziest things that I found out whilst building this studio was I bought a set of microphones and I had this terrible noise coming through the microphones, which I didn't get when I recorded at my dad's house out in Christmas Hills. And I don't know anything about microphones. I had to learn all this shit. And so I was like, what's wrong? Something's broken. Eventually I went full tinfoil hat and I had the whole podcast system attached to a battery pack. And I've got the headphones on and I've got the microphone and I'm walking around the house and I'm walking up and down this fucking street finding this noise because there's this noise coming through. And I'll tell you what it was in the end. It was like a lot of electrical noise happens from so many things that it's just under our radar of being able to hear. But when you put a microphone on and headphones, you start to hear the electrical and magnetic noise that's fucking going off everywhere.
That's cool.
And the what is it? The like gas or the electric smart meter.
Ah, yeah, that one is
behind this camera right here. There's a smart meter on the outside of the front door.
Yep.
And that makes so much electrical noise that it actually like it fucks up everything, and it's so loud and it's happening all the time. And then I took this deep dive down I started Googling, like, how do I take out my smart meter? Like, how can I fix it? I need to record a podcast. And I came across the biggest rabbit hole. If anyone's listening, go down the rabbit hole of smart meters and what that shit does to people, allegedly. Who knows? I'm not saying I know 100% sure, but that's not your property either. You actually can't take that off. You can't take that off. You have to apply and get registered to get that taken off your house.
Well, look, anyone wanting to look into that, be ready. Because, we talked about how you become aware of something, it gets worse first.
Yeah.
So
continue, sorry.
We as human beings, we create positive charges because we're moving constantly. Physioelectric energy, if anyone wants to look that up. And the earth is negatively charged. And normally we constantly be in connection with the earth where we create positively electrical charge through moving and thoughts and so forth. And then when we connect to the earth, we decompress, so to speak. Nowadays, because we have phones, we have Bluetooth, we have Wi-Fi, we have radio waves, we're constantly getting positively charged. And what that's going to do, it's going to cause way more inflammation, diabetes, obesity, we just don't function. And the problem with that is our cycle is lessened. Because essentially, our body, we are hydroelectric beings. We are 70% water. We've got the fascia that directs energy. And if there's not enough polarity, literally our ability to sense and feel and be present lowers. If I take off my shoes, my awareness skyrockets. The shoes that I'm wearing are actually allowing me to ground as well. They've got copper wiring.
Oh, are these Earth Runners?
These are Earth Runners.
I wanted to get some of them.
Oh, you should. They're awesome.
Yeah, so they're constantly connected to the floor.
Constantly connected.
I like it.
And what it allows me to do, every time I'm walking, I can feel. I can feel the earth. I can feel concrete. I can feel stones and rocks. And because I'm so aware, I can sense and feel, and I can look people in the eye, see emotions, which at first is really hard. And another thing, and now I'm going to go way deeper. Consciousness is the infinity symbol. It's the feminine. And if you look at the body a little bit more deeply, you see that manifested in the body as well. Like you've got the left and the right hemisphere, the corpus callosum, and then the left hemisphere feeds into the sternocleidomastoid, which is the neck muscle, which feeds into your chest. Your left chest onto your obliques, into your right hip. And from your right hip, it feeds into your VMO, which is a quad muscle, into your soleus, which is the calf, into your foot. And then from the foot, it goes through the earth into your other foot and back down. So that's a figure 8. And more cycles means more data. So the fact that I'm not wearing shoes or that I'm grounded, the electricity can go from one foot to the other, means that I'm more present. I can sense more, I can feel more, my working memory is greater, my blood flow increases, my nervous system fires quicker. It is insane.
So it actually allows it to speed up that cyclical process that's happening. And that's a real thing. What the fuck?
Yeah. And that's also why coiling, I do a lot of coiling with a hammer, where I get a hammer, I swing it around. It's the same thing. Because constantly what I'm doing contralateral movement where I'm connecting everything. It's one of the oldest way of training, actually. The Indians do a lot of that, where they've got these clubs and they swing it around. The Vikings used to do it.
I've seen them where they're like doing that. Yeah.
Get into that stuff. That's awesome. I ever since I started doing that, it's like I've upgraded my hardware. Things make so much more sense because my body moves a lot better. And for those of you that think that's a bit far-fetched, I'll take it a step back. Your heart obviously has a limited amount of capacity to beat. And once your heart gets tired, once your breathing muscles start to get fatigued, your nervous system says like, hey buddy, you've done enough today, let's slow down. But let's say my body is nice and soft, I don't have any tense muscles, my fascia is relaxed. Now all of a sudden my heart doesn't have to pump so hard anymore. And all of a sudden the muscles don't have to tense up, they can work together. Meaning that I can just get a lot more done. I don't experience as much stress on my nervous system. Like, oh, you're good to go, you can stay in flow. Whereas if someone has tight hips, tight neck, knees are not working, ankles are locked up, feet are not nice and splayed, they constantly feel stress. And as you feel stress, your ability to maneuver and move just lessens. So going barefoot, man, evolution, critical mass, we talked about before. Training your jaw, same thing.
Training your jaw.
I can pull 400 kilo with my teeth at this day and age.
What's the benefit of having a strong jaw? Besides being a fucking Tough dude.
Vegan scary mofo. Well, in jiu-jitsu, it's awesome because people cannot do a whole bunch of moves on you. They try and pull your spine out of alignment. They can't, which is always really quite funny. So there's another principle called the attachment site, and the body I call tension sites. So whenever I want to be explosive, so I throw, I jump, I open my mouth. And what the opening of the mouth does, you see this in Olympic weightlifters really well. They do this. If I have a super heavy weight that I have to hold on to, I clench my teeth. And the stronger my jaw becomes, the more explosive sort of that fuse becomes. So I can bear my weight down a lot better, and I can explode up a lot better. Beyond that, it opens up your nasal cavity. It makes your face more masculine, which makes you more intimidating, which nowadays is a benefit. And if let's say I look down and I tense up the front of my neck, I'm now feeding tension into my obliques and my pecs. And if I don't have that ability, there's instability. Because now when I walk, I feel stable. Like your head is important. We all know this, right? If someone hits your brain hard enough, you're out. You're passed out. So if my brain constantly wobbles and doesn't have a nice and stable base, you feel uncomfortable. Whereas I don't have that issue. If someone stacks me and puts their entire weight on my neck, I can handle 400 kilos. I'll be fine. Like neck training, jaw training.
The stability.
Yep.
Yeah.
And are your teeth going to be fine? Yeah. I spoke to a dentist. He said, it's fine. Look, the thing that damages your teeth is
Is grinding.
You're grinding. And that's not what we're doing. You've got to, you don't even have to go to Amazon to buy anything. I use belts that I cut up, and I just get a sled, and I pull that sled, or I deadlift with my teeth.
So I've seen that you've got...
Sorry, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
Increases the cycle as well. Because your neck gets stronger, it feeds the signal quicker. Because your brain connects to the rest of your body, and if your neck is more stable, the signals travel quicker. That's the last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up.
So I really got to look into this signal thing more, because it's a great justification. I understand that walking barefoot is beneficial for many reasons, but in terms of my ability to express it or like understand it in some deep way that I can explain it, I don't really have the answers besides like balancing electromagnetic charge between you and the earth for the most part.
Yeah.
But this connection cycle, whatever that is, has that system got a name?
As in what I do?
No, in terms of that from your brain down into the floor, down into the other side. Wonder if it does.
Well, cycles are fundamental to reality. Everything has cycles because that's the feminine energy manifested. And what the cycle essentially does is it allows you to feel. And the more you can feel, the more you can adjust. And I was programming ChatGPT to understand these principles. I can send it to you after this conversation once my ChatGPT is unblocked. I do that, by the way, so I can't look at anything on Sunday.
Oh, I thought you were getting too crazy on it.
No.
We're going to get this guy off.
No. I can't be on my phone on Sunday, so I block a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay.
But I was trying to explain it to ChatGPT what it was, and it's you can't really disrupt the flow. You can only slow the flow down. And if my neck is unstable, it just means that muscles are full of water, and water is a conductor. So you're literally increasing the cell transmission. The same happens in axons and dendrites in the brain. You get the myelin sheaths, and the thicker the myelin sheath, the quicker the signal goes. So the thicker my neck is, the quicker the signal goes from my brain to my body and my body to my brain. By the way, more signals go from the body to the brain, from the brain to the body. Little side note there. It's 70%, 70-30. 70 goes to the brain, 30% goes down.
So you're absorbing a lot more information through the rest of your body to send to your brain.
Yeah, the brain just makes predictions. That's all it does. It's not who we are. I think we relate to our body via our heart.
I agree with that. I've heard that there's I don't know the exact numbers, but I've heard that there is like a substantial neural network in the heart. So from my really layman's understanding of it is there's a neural network in our brain that somehow has the capacity to give us consciousness in some manner. And same with the heart. The heart has neural networks in it that also give it the ability to have a level of consciousness, so to speak.
I'll levy this a little bit. So you got the heart, you got the guts, and you got the brain, which is the masculine. Sorry, the information, that's the seed, the child, as they say. You got the guts, that's the masculine, and you got the heart, that's the feminine. And because they're all subsystems, so the brain is a subsystem, the guts are a subsystem, the heart, they all have the information part. So the brain obviously has a nervous system, as we know. The heart has a nervous system, the gut also has a nervous system. But all three also have metabolism, they all have structure. Because, the brain can be trained. You can literally do more of something, like Andrew Huberman talks about that. There's a brain structure that grows as you do things that you don't want to do.
Oh, man.
Anterior singular?
Anterior mid-singular cortex?
Anterior mid-singular, that one.
That's the seat of willpower, supposedly, right? Yeah, I went and saw Andrew Huberman whenever he came here, like last year.
What was he like?
I mean, he was pretty much the exact same as what you see online. Like, he was a total nerd in all the right ways. But he touched. I'd never heard about the mid-singular
cortex,
anterior cortex or whatever it is. It's got some abbreviation. Continue with it.
Yeah, so we're not our brain. So every structure has an ability through the vortex to relate to the next dimension. In the brain, it's the pineal gland. In the gut, I actually don't know which one that is. But I don't believe we are. This goes really deep, by the way, so bear with me. I don't believe we are our body and our mind. I think we relate to our being through the heart. Because what I found is reality is mostly fractal patterns. And fractal patterns emerge from a vortex. Because a vortex is a way that our body can exist in the chaos that it's life. Because there's another principle, it's called fluctuations. If you look at empty space on the Planck scale, which is the smallest scale known to man, it's incredibly chaotic. The amount of energy that's in the Planck scale, you should look it up, it's something ridiculous. So for our physiology to function and all these enzymes to be released and proteins to be released, we need to have something stable, and that's the vortex.
It's like a whirlpool in the middle of a river, right?
That's it.
Everything's flowing around it, but there's this singularity.
Yeah, and you can very clearly see this. If I have an obstacle course, I do that with kids a lot, balancing. If I go across a balancing course really slowly, that's really hard. But if I start to move my hands around, and if I start to step and contract like that, all of a sudden I create this vortex. They call it the spinal engine. That spinal engine allows me to stabilize. And that's essentially what I do with hammer coiling. I'm creating more and more centrifugal force, and I'm feeding my spinal engine, which is the vortex. Vortexes you see everywhere. If you look at the Earth, for example, our magnetic field of the Earth, you've got the torus, which is the masculine. You've got the figure 8, that's the feminine, and that creates a torus. And that allows, the Earth to be protected against radiation of the sun, and the sun creates the same force field around the galaxy, which protects us. Sorry, the sun protects the solar system from radiation of the out. It's really quite fascinating. You see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Like with Kylie and me, we are the vortex of the dojo. We are the feminine and the masculine. I'm the Taurus and she's the figure 8. And together we create a vortex that allows people to come in and feel safe and do their classes and not worry about things being cleaned up. Do you see why I feel like I'm insane?
You can find it in all things.
Yeah.
No? Do you feel like you're insane? Why do you've mentioned it a couple times?
I do mention it a couple of times because understanding these principles makes everything seem so simple. Life, and that's another principle, simplicity and complexity. They coexist. You go through layers. Like winter would be simplistic and summer would be complex. So I look at life and I go, it's so simple. It's so straightforward. I see all the connections and I go, I'm insane. Because why doesn't nobody talk about this? But then I go like, okay, but what have you been able to achieve so far with this information? Like, okay, well, the dojo's doing well. We've, we increased our amount of money we've made by 25% this year. Now I now fast 5 days a week, being able to lift that big weight. I'm like, it is working. I'm getting proof that what I'm saying is actually correct. But it's so far removed from anything I've ever learned. Sports science, most of the stuff I learned there, I'm like, that doesn't work. You know, barbells. I don't even use barbells anymore. Machines, barely.
Don't think it's useful.
Not because the a system has always. I say system a lot, don't I?
It's all right. It's a good way of explaining it.
A system has attachment sites, and the best way to explain that is if you get a virus and I inject it into your skin, you're in big trouble because you're not utilizing the tension sites. But if it goes through my nose, also my body has time to respond. Or even better example, when I came to Australia, it was really hard because I didn't get the attachment sites right. If I talk to an Australian, they say, "Hey, how you going?" I'm like, "Hi." And they go, "You're a bit of an asshole." And then slowly I started to learn that I had to say, "Hey, how you going?" "Yeah, good. How about you?" "Yeah, good, thanks." Which meant that I went into the attachment site properly. They felt comfortable around me. They went like, "Okay, you're normal." Same as in martial arts, you've got attachment sites. Like with Aikido, if I don't project myself forward properly, and if I don't have your pinky properly, the whole movement falls apart.
Mm.
And in life, it's the same thing. You've got attachment sites. And if I figure those out, that I can modulate whatever I want to modulate. If I look at our business, Eltham Martial Arts Academy, and I say like, oh, let's say we grow our dojo by 20% income next year. There's one thing that I can change that will change everything. There's one thing that's going to induce critical mass. And if I can figure that out, and it might be that I need to wear a different shirt. It might be that there's a big smudge on the front door. So every time someone walks in, they go, "Oh, it's a bit dirty here." It might be in your life that you're doing one particular thing that's messing everything up. Or vice versa, you're doing one thing that keeps everything together. And if you figure out what that one thing is that you're doing well, you can build off of that. With me, it's walking. I will let go of everything but walking. Walking is the reason why I am where I am nowadays.
You think that's a foundational
Yeah, that's the
practice.
in Strong Fit they call that the key log.
Okay, yeah, like the cornerstone of a bridge. Yeah.
Julian Pinot, he talked about. He said that he had these loggers in Canada, and then they have these logs being transported via the river, and then sometimes it will get stuck. And instead of just wiggling all those logs, they get the person that's learned to go up and go, "It's that log," and they remove that log, and everything flows.
Mm.
And that's another principle of life. And figure out your key log, and whether that's you've got a massive cheat day every Saturday, you're watching pornography, or you're super negative towards yourself, or there's that one person in your life that you need to remove. Could be it. So instead of just leaning into one thing, try a few things.
So from your experience, for you take a person who is currently, they're not active, they're not fit, they don't feel like they're doing mentally well. They're not necessarily confident or confident with themselves. They're not happy with where they are at life. They're not happy when they look in the mirror or the sound of their own voice. They're having a shit one, and they haven't been given any guidance before, and they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do, and they're stuck in a cycle of social media and opinions and all the other shit that affects us on a daily basis. Where does someone start to get moving, to get off the ground, to get from 0 to 1?
Easy. That's an easy answer. Walking. And
I should have guessed that.
Yeah. No, I'll go a bit deeper. So there's a really good reason why walking nowadays is so incredibly important. There's a structure to this. So number one, our major affliction of this day and age is information. We're getting way too much information. And because we've got so much information, we don't know what to do anymore. And the quality of your thoughts and quality of your actions indicates where you go in life. If you have quality thoughts, which goes into quality actions, you sort your life out. The ability to walk on a regular basis allows you to look at things and go, what am I actually doing? Am I doing the right thing? What does right even mean? That person said something to me that seemed very negative at the time, but apparently it's not that negative because in that moment it was really shitty. So I'd say walking. Number two, one thing that we're suffering from is we think that fitness has everything to do with things that are flashy. And fitness is hierarchy. When we're talking about metabolism, you've got your aerobic metabolism, you've got an anaerobic lactic, anaerobic alactic, explosive, endurance, and okay, so let's say doing a power clean with a barbell. or doing a CrossFit workout, or doing a marathon. We're constantly at the top. We want things that are quick, that make us feel great, that make us look great, look sexy, but we don't want to do all the boring stuff, the aerobic stuff.
With the instant gratification.
Correct. And if you do lots of walking, your aerobic metabolism gets increased, which means less inflammation, you're more relaxed, you sleep better, sexual function goes up. And if you want to be even more specific, if someone really wants to turn their life around, when you wake up, go for a walk straight away. Get some light in your eyes. You know this one, Andrew Huberman, classic. Number 2, during the day, either when it's really bright out, go for 10 minutes, get a whole bunch of UVA on your skin, or do it right after a meal. One of those two. And then the last one, the end of the day, you've absorbed a whole bunch of information, and you have to process. You have to alter your predictions. And the fact you're doing it at the end of the day means you can also sleep. Because we all know those moments where you're in bed, you go, like, oh my God, I've got so many thoughts to think about.
Yeah.
If you want to sort your life out, wake up, get out of bed, go for a walk. Big meal, go for a walk. End of the day, hour before, go for a walk. Do that every day, and you'll start to
find the path.
take your shoes off as well if you can.
Yeah.
I know that's a bit weird, but if you want to make that more effective, walk on edges, on things that are not flat, so your foot gets properly stimulated. Maybe get some toe spacers or do some stretches for your toes.
So we just got to be a human.
Yeah. Ha!
Start
be
off.
normal, yeah.
Be a fucking human.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, much of the health space is just coming back to our natural state.
Man, I love everything that you're talking about. I know that we could sit here and probably shoot the shit for hours.
What time is it even?
We just hit 3 hours of talking. So we're on 3 hours. I personally want to just get so much more of an understanding of this life system that you have. I know we've touched on different, areas of it, but I'm really interested on how you tie it all together and blend it together in a functional sort of life. I'm really interested to hear about all of that, plus many more things that you've got to talk about. We could keep going. It's really up to you. But before we tie it off, is there any sort of real pressing things that from this conversation you want to get out, you want to talk about?
Look, I can make it really simple on how to apply this. Intention is everything. Intention is fundamental. Intention is what creates reality, is what I believe. So why are you here? What are you supposed to do? What are you good at? And this is a long process, because this is like, I know my intention. Right. Figure that out. Beyond anything. Why are you here? What are you supposed to do? Tie everything to that. And get people to test you. If your intention doesn't make someone feel something where you go, that's awesome, then you're not there yet. That's number 1. Number 2, I know I've mentioned a whole heap of things about principle this, principle that, activity A, activity B. Start with the stuff that works. Get the experience, get the habit, forget about it. Because that's what the brain does. That's what our nervous system does. It gets all this information together, which is, first complexity.
Yeah.
More and more and more, and then simplicity. What's left? So if you want to sort your life out, intention, go for a walk. Go for a walk every single day. If you want, take your shoes off. And then if you want to go for step 2, I don't know, carry some weight. Number 3, have a cold shower. Number 4, 1 day a month where you don't eat anything. Number 5, I don't know, yell from time to time.
Get it out.
Get it out. Read a book. But start off with number 1. Be so certain of the benefits of what you're doing that you will not think a second of letting that go. I will never let go of walking. I will never let go of exercise or fasting. Out of the question. It is so clear to me that this is benefiting me that I don't have to explain it to people.
Yeah, you don't need to justify these things.
No.
Or hear it from a scientist telling you that it's good.
In fact, scientists are limiting themselves in their belief because they've got such a framework that I have to hold on to. I'm a scientist. I can't think of spirituality.
We've had so much of our power taken away from us from this idea that you shouldn't trust yourself and you should only trust the information that's given to you. Like, it's really...
Speak to your medical professional.
Yeah, it's really fucked people up. And it's obviously there is a point where getting advice from people who are better than you is useful, obviously. Yeah. But in terms of being able to trust yourself and feel within your sight inside of yourself and be like, is this benefiting me? And actually being able to come up with an answer to that on your own.
Yep. Feel it. You have to feel that.
Yeah.
Benefiting, you need to feel that.
Intention setting is a big one for me. I think it's so important, and I've gotten so much value out of when I have set intentions properly and follow that process of creation. I'm always interested in how other people go about it. Like, it's when you're starting from that place of, why should I be here? What should I do? It's an overwhelming thought. How do you go about intention setting?
Simplicity, complexity. So sometimes I learn to let go and learn to let go of my persona and what I think is right and wrong. And I come back to the fundamentals and I open it up again.
So you're like expanding and contracting.
Expanding, contracting, whatever is left, I work with. And the problem is a lot of what I say is really hard to grasp because I get the frequency. I don't want to drag this out too long, but to really get the point across of what I mean is you've got this video on Instagram of these 2 stem forks. You got one stem fork with a little tennis ball or ping pong ball next to it and a little rope.
What is it? A stem?
Stem fork. So you hit it and it vibrates.
Okay, yeah.
And then you got another stem fork and a guy hits it and nothing happens. Hits it as hard as he can. Ball doesn't vibrate. And then he gets a much smaller one, which goes a lot higher pitch. And then still nothing. And he gets a much bigger one, still nothing. And he gets the right one. And he hits it and all of a sudden it starts vibrating.
Oh, like a tuning fork. So it's the right pitch. Okay,
it's the right pitch. So what I've done, my intentions are now so simple that most people can't connect to that yet. They're like, oh yeah, just be. Like, what does that mean? Okay, great. So first you have to get complex. In martial arts, if my sensei explains to me how to do a certain move, he gets it. I don't. I first have to understand everything before I can collapse it into this one little thing. Because he's like, I just look at your finger. And then I know everything else about your body. Whereas I'm looking at your face and your feet and your toes and your knees. So intention setting, it needs to be really simple. You need to feel it. If you don't feel your intention, you don't have the right frequency vibrations.
So get complex, get specific, get as much information as possible. Draw it all in until it's a simple, powerful, resonating with your fucking heart chakra.
You need to feel it.
Yeah.
I love working with kids now, and I love being able to provide them with these beliefs that they can work on. And that I feel. If I say, I want to be a role model to kids, that's it. Done. I feel that. Because I've had those experiences. I've seen what it's like to be a sort of a second father to kids. To have them trust you. I have, at this moment, at least 30 kids that are willing to touch me, to be close to me, they feel safe around me. You can't give me a better compliment. Because the physical touch thing is, I'm quite overtly aggressive. And the fact that they, especially the kids that are neurodivergent, are willing to touch me, like put their hand on my leg, tells me I'm doing something right.
Yeah. They're comfortable around you.
They're comfortable around me.
Yeah.
And that means they tease me. But
it's just the adults who can't handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that wraps it up pretty well.
Man, thank you so much for coming in, for starters. I've really enjoyed this conversation. All the things that you're talking about are different areas that I've dived into and want to continue diving into. I've learned a lot today, and I really do believe in all the stuff that you're talking about. I really do think that from the way that you describe systems to the intention setting to the way that everything's connected, the expanding, contracting, the frequencies, all that sort of stuff, I'm fucking totally here for. I personally do think it's the way the world works, the way we work. And so it's nice to get into these conversations because I know that they can be, at least for me, they can be complex and non-specific and kind of weird, and you flow all over the place. And I'm trying to find some coherence out of the middle of it, out of the soup of craziness. But you do it well, so I appreciate you coming in, and it's nice to meet you, man.
Likewise.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. Actually, before we wrap it up, like you've got the business side of things. So yeah, talk to me about that. I can chuck it up, like your website. all those sort of things?
Yeah. ElthamMartialArts.com.au is one. That's where you can find our dojo. FunctionalFitnessEltham.com.au is pretty straightforward as well. ElthamWellness.com.au. CaringConnect.com is the organization, and my own personal website is, I think, linktree.ee/Willem_Van_Zanten. If you type it. If you type in my name, you'll find it.
I'll chuck it all up as well. Mate, thank you so much, brother. And everybody, thanks for sticking along for the ride. And
3 hours.
yeah, fuck yeah, so good. Peace out. Enjoy. Os.